Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. Sorry about that, y'all. I did a restart update and it broke everything. You know, the whole like, hey, your Windows needs to update the computer, restart the computer. And I did that and then it broke everything. So I've had to restart it a couple times to get to work. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours. This is a live stream where I talk about Star Citizen and Star Citizen lore. We talk about news. We talk about just generally Star Citizen stuff. It's more of a hangout, chill, and talk. We do have some specific topics we will talk about, but the vast majority of those topics will get their own videos. I'll just take sections of this and pull it out there. Now, that isn't always the case. For instance, this week we'll do the Squadron 42 video, but we probably won't be doing anything on the new HUD, even though it's pretty cool, mostly because of publishing issues. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to go over a quick little thing about how YouTube works. YouTube works in a slow pacing manner. So most videos do not blow up instantly unless you are already really well known. So it takes a while for YouTube to decide where your video goes and who should be watching your video. So unless you have the bell icon hit, you won't be updated on any of your new, it won't notify you about new videos that are coming out. And since most people stay on the home page, not the subscriber page, most people don't actually know when the people they're subscribed to release videos because YouTube knows that you're going to stay on the home page, not the subscriber page, because that's the default page and people tend to not want to click away from the default page. It's clever moves on them because it gets you to watch new videos and see other videos you may not have noticed anyways. But in order for, say, a video like mine to get up on the homepage, it needs to have be sorted into if you would like it or not. And so that's often why people, because I've had this happen. It's part of the reason I'm talking this is because a lot of people haven't seen this before. But that's why it takes 2 to 3 days for that video that you've been waiting for to pop up on your feed, because it doesn't pop up on your home feed until YouTube has sorted it. As a result, if you start pumping out a ton of videos at once, the likelihood of YouTube sorting those videos properly starts going down because it doesn't prioritize you unless you're a super high rock star. They don't prioritize shit. So what they will do is take 2 to 3 days. So if I produce a video after video after video after video, the likelihood of one of those videos just getting buried is pretty high because of the way that the algorithm works. So if you're on YouTube watching this after the fact and you're like, wow, Paul, I didn't even see this this live stream until like Sunday, that's because YouTube. So that's why I'm going to do this right now, because this is recorded on YouTube as well. Hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell icon to know when that comes on. And as I will say always, this is live on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, super early in the morning for those of you in Europe, but it's available for y'all to come in and watch. After the fact, that's why I keep it archived. I do not archive my other streams, but I also do stream to both YouTube and Twitch at the same time for my regular gameplay streams, because people have said, hey, Paul, I'd love to see you play games more often. I do. Quite frequently if you watch me on Twitch, but I've been trying to move it over to YouTube as well to get both. So, and on both of those, YouTube and Twitch, I do have ways you can monetarily help me out. You can subscribe on YouTube or on Twitch. You can become a member on YouTube, and you can become a member on both of my YouTube channels, both the AstroPub Live and the Astro Historian, because YouTube gave me this great deal recently. So I was like, oh, why not? I'll just activate memberships as well. So there's lots of options there as well, making things up there. But with that all out of the way, I'm going to go get some water because I forgot to grab the mini, because I did actually manage to paint something, and then we'll get started on everything. We just have to prioritize you in your hearts. Yes. Astro, no Windows on a Corsair Drake pad. It's not that kind of exploration ship, my man. Right back. I am back. All right. So, before we get started on all the news and such, I do want to go over what I usually, it's kind of a model, I guess we've been calling it the modeling corner, as it were. The very beginnings of these live streams, I show off my any models I've painted recently. I do painting models as a hobby on top of all of this. I started during the pandemic and I've just kept going. I'm not nearly as prolific as I was during the pandemic, but I managed to get a couple things done. This one, I've been working on my Blood Bowl team, so. Let me. It's hard to tell. I am not a professional painter by any stretch of the imagination. I do it because it helps me unwind. But I think they're pretty good. They're pretty good at a glance. Up close, they're pretty bad. But I've been enjoying doing the Blood Bowl team. So I've got I think it's like 14 models I got, and so far I've done 3. Do I have any of Darja's ships? I do. I just haven't painted them yet. I've been meaning to get to them. I'll probably get back to them by CitizenCon again. You're not what after ISE today. You're not a human. We'll talk about that again for sure. Does the stream title plus game still need to change here, or is it just me? It should say Star Citizen. Has it not changed? Okay, I'll change it again if it's not changed. I may have not changed it. Yeah, I didn't change it. Give me a moment. Probably why no one's watching. There we go. There we go. And then change it to... Yeah, that should be updated now. Sorry, I had some technical issue and I had to do a bunch of restarting for my computer and I forgot to change it. Go back to my channel. Yeah, I dual stream. I've been dual streaming for over a year now. Hey, Colonel Mordor. Thank you for being a member as always. I do want to shout out the members who have helped out. There are people who spent I think $5 is the minimum you can get. The members we have right now are Hourglass Mage, Colonel Mortimer, Unknown Guardian, One Calgan 1, and Deepa. Got 5 members. That's why you can support the channel on YouTube. If nobody wants Squadron 42, are they? Why are they making it? Because the reality is that there's plenty of people who want Squadron 42. It's just confirmation bias. People who already don't want Squadron 42 are seeking out people who don't want Squadron 42. There's plenty of people who purchased Squadron 42 and fucked off. But that's the other thing, is that that CIG wants people who haven't played Star Citizen to play Squadron 42. They want those people to come play the game, and then if they haven't heard of Star Citizen, to be able to jump onto Star Citizen. It's a two-way street. I don't know if this is the theme. This is just the melody medley. This is the themes medley. It's all the Star Citizen music. There you go. I've yet to watch ISC just for 16 more minutes of this video, and I'll watch it. I'm gonna pull it up and we'll watch it together, just so we can look at it and talk about it. Do a little bit of reaction. Okay. Let's pull up.
Star Citizen is a big game with big ideals, bigger aspirations, and some of the very biggest spaceships. And while there's lots to do in the persistent universe, with more and more things being added to every patch, it's these spaceships that sit at the center of everything. That's why each year the community votes big in our annual Ship Showdown. Your chance to determine the best of the best and award the winners with new and exclusive paints. And since this year's event starts up on Monday, in like 4 days,
we're gonna talk about it here in a moment there, Tick.
All vehicle sprint report for you this week. A sprint showdown, if you would. And we're gonna start with a big look at the upcoming Drake Corsair, seen over the course of 2 consecutive sprints.
Okay, so before we get started with this one, I do want to point out some things that people may not know. Where Jared is standing right now is one of, I think, 2 theaters that they have. They have a theater which is dedicated just to video production, which is where Jared and his team will be. And then they have a theater that's dedicated just to mocap. Where Jared is right now is the mocap studio. They have their own mocap studio for the Squadron for Squadron 42, but for the Manchester office. And it's literally, I think, across Skybridge. It's literally it's within walking distance of the office. And this is big because anybody who's ever dealt with anything in motion capture knows it's a pain in the fucking ass. It is a terrible, long process. It requires a lot of time and prep, and they've gotten better at it, but those time-saving measures can only go so far. So the fact that they have a brand new studio that like this, and they're working on it right now, is actually pretty big for anybody who follows development. It means that animation glitches, animation improvements, mocap for specific characters, for things like, little windows where you get to see like the characters talking, how like they just kind of like have a voice squiggle, like a voice, a wave form that pops up with maybe a static face over it. In the future, CIG wants to be able to have that be completely animated. It also means, for those of you who are like me and want to see things like in-game shows, like news things, those kind of things, this is where they would be able to do it. This is one of those things that would help them bridge that gap to improve the qualities of the cinematics and such. So I have seen this already, yes, but I'm going to go through it again because a lot of people haven't.
As the ship moves through gray box phase, you can see the exterior detail beginning to take shape, as this sprint focused primarily on the nacelle and connecting areas of the starboard side of this asymmetrical vehicle to build them out so they feel properly big and chunky and
Why is mocap so important? I don't understand. So mocap is a way of hybriding the current animation, because hand selling, like hand animating all of the actions that happen in the game is time consuming and expensive. It looks really, really good when you can nail it, But anything you can do to simplify that process without losing immersion is a big deal. And that's why most video games use mocap as a means to animate, because it's faster than hand drawn, or not hand drawn in this case, like digital, but like still like animating it by hand and getting those frames worked down, all that kind of stuff. That process is expensive. Reiterate. Get someone. Hey, Escobar, thank you so much for that 10 months of support. But that is important. It's important to kind of cut down on time and assets. The problem is that the downside is you need to have people and you need to have access to the space, and the space can be the expensive part. When all things are said and done, a combination of hand animation and or I say hand animation, I keep saying that, but like done by individual animators and mocap as kind of a combo of those two tends to be the easiest solution for high quality. But the more mocap you can get, the better, because you can use those as reference points or just even blend them into the animations themselves because you've got full animated right there. So the fact that they have access to a mocap studio of their own means a couple things. One, it means that they can basically do whatever they want whenever they want to. I talked to a couple of the people, the mocap actors who used to work for CIG. Many of them moved on because they work in Austin, and but they talked about how like literally their job is sometimes to sit there and pick up boxes. Just pick up a box 17,000 different times in different ways to try to get all these different animation types that they can then literally export to the engine in real time and see the animations on the engine. It's janky and looks weird, but it's in the engine. So then it's easier to kind of take that and craft it down a little bit. So you can make the movement smoother, more realistic, and also be able to do that much faster than having to hand animate walking upstairs in many different ways. I keep saying handmade, but it's literally, like you're doing it individually. You're if you know how animation works, in the past you would move a cell like only a couple of inches. Like a character would be moving, like a walk cycle would take months of work because you'd have to move every single movement, and the more subtle the movement is, the higher the frames you can get it at, which means that you can look smoother and more realistic, which is why animation actually, really old animation was like at 15 frames per second or something like that. It was really small compared to even film. But to do that is time consuming, and it costs a lot of money and time to, literally do that. But with this, it becomes out. And the other side is you can actually lease the studio. You can actually make money because when CIG is not using it, they can lease it to whoever they want. So they can just set aside time to, hey, we're going to use the studio. These are our times for when we can use our studio. And then anytime we don't, we can lease it to any other studio that needs it. Film companies, TV shows, games, animators, whatever. So hopefully that gives you kind of an idea. A lot of little secondary action that's subconsciously perceived as real versus fake can be hashed out in a few takes. For mocap, interpolation of mocap footage, however, is also an art. Yes, but it's a time saving method that can also increase the fidelity, which is why it's used.
Structurally and functionally sound, as is the Drake way. Now, the lighter gray areas are the original concept mesh, which serves as a guide to artists to maintain the original scale and shape whenever possible. The Drake visual style is often about layering, with the interior structure poking out from beneath the more clad exterior, and as Graybox continues, it'll get closer and closer to the detailed mesh of the concept while maintaining the performance and optimization standards developed since it was first envisioned. Now, not every part of a ship moves through the pipeline at the same pace, as you can see here with the remote turret jumping from concept mesh straight ahead to final art, since it's a relatively small, self-contained, and not needing the same level of iteration part as the rest of the ship. And we also have this look at working out the landing gear, a hallmark of any Graybox phase, making certain it's both stylish enough to maintain the manufacturer look, while functional enough so that the physics system won't topple the entire ship over. Unless the wind kicks up, or Burks lands it. Savage. much. And
That diss on Burks, though.
on the inside, this sprint also featured work on the crew quarters with a mix of gray box and final art work coming along quite quickly that's been enabled by efforts of team members from previous Drake ships.
For those of you who are wondering, because I see something, yeah, the animations are really stiff, and like a lot of the animations look really weird. And it's like that's because they don't have access to, they don't have like easy access to mocap, so they have to do it by hand, and they have to do it they have to save as much time and separate their time working on animations for Squadron 42 versus Star Citizen. This should improve upon it, and if you've been reading the monthly reports, they've talked about a new system that they're implementing that to smooth out the animations a lot better for things like shifting your weight and doing things like picking up stuff for AI and for players, that kind of to smooth out those animation styles to make it a little bit more realistic. They've been in a long process for doing that over the last 3-4 months right now. Effectively, they're in a sprint to smooth those out. And this studio is going to help them out a lot. No, they don't have a mocap studio. They have a space for mocap, but it's not a studio. And that space, I think, has already been entirely taken up for by staff. If I remember correctly, their studio, the space they were using was in LA, which is where Jared was doing his stuff. But yeah, it's effectively it was an ad hoc space for an ad hoc reason that they could use for the purpose, and now they actually have a dedicated studio. And they did use studios. They used one of the Pinewood studios. It was one of those bigger studios that they used for this stuff. Yeah, the videos in Squadron 42 were rented. Those were rented. They actually own these ones.
And then 2 weeks later, after the conclusion of another sprint, you can see more additions made like the loading ramp, a combination of several pieces that fold down and extend out to allow access through the rear of the ship. And yes, it's big enough for an Ursa and other similarly sized ground vehicles. Yay! Let's move up the ramp into the cargo hold, where the process of gray box is being tweaked to include material assignments, adding a bit of color to the otherwise gradient-only phase and allowing artists to better see and gauge shape breakout without having to dip into final art early, as can sometimes happen.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Here's another look at the landing gear
Nice
2
addition.
weeks on with improved animation and detail. And perhaps most excitingly, this sprint was where the wings were attached to the finished nacelles, necessitating 2 separate attachment and transformation systems for each side due to the asymmetrical nature of the ship, which you can see here with these
A1.
little doors that
1D.
open to allow folding up and then close down flat when extended for maximum aerodynamics. You may also notice the thruster flaps are being made to extend and contract.
Is that a captain's table next to the bunk? That was a captain's table next to the bunk. I'm going to back it up real quickly so y'all can see what Mortimer's talking about. Do. So the bunk right there. Captain's table. Captain's table. Captain's table. Captain's hat right there. See? Like an old military hat, at least.
Force being exerted. Gotta love that Drake functionality. So feedback during this sprint was to push for a greater diversity between the attached sensor rods from the concept and the mounted weapons on the wings, with additional considerations regarding the front-loading hangars on planets and stations and the potential adjustments that may need to be made to the wings. And, well, we're just gonna have to see how those things progress over the next few sprints.
Is that a component space near the sides of the cargo bay? I think so. The rounded areas. Everyone's got their own room? Yeah, in the Corsair, everyone's got their own room. I don't think this doesn't make the Drake Cutlass look bad. This is the equivalent of the Connie. This is Drake's answer to the Connie. So it's going to have more accoutrement than most Drake ships. But it's effectively a cut-down Caterpillar, if you look at it in terms of its capacity and everything. And the only difference is that the Caterpillar has a communal bunk, and this one has rooms for everyone because it's designed for more exploration purposes, so... But it's also a Drake ship, so Drake doesn't have any fucking windows, except for the cockpit.
And while we're on the multi-sprint look at spaceships, let's check in with a little tugboat that could...
What ship is most like Bebop, in my opinion? The closest would probably be the Hercules.
The Argo SRV, which entered Greybox phase with one artist on the exterior and one on the interior, and those eagle-eyed viewers may notice that the ship has grown just a little bit in the cockpit area to allow for the enter-exit animations from the pilot seat. And while we're in here, let's take a look at the early Greybox phase of the inside. Yeah,
Fuzzy
you
dice.
can see here that staff are taking craft from the raft, especially in the aft, because we're not daft.
As much as the rhyming is happening, I do like the fact that they're basically cannibalizing parts that they've already made for things like the raft and such for these ships, because that makes sense. That is very much an Argo mentality. If we've already built the damn thing, we probably built it as a module. Just slap that baby on top of another module and call it done. It's Lego ships. Argo is probably the closest example of like the ships from Starfield are probably going to look a lot like Argo ships because they have a similar kind of mentality. Yeah,
I should stop
don't build more than you have to. It's the answer.
this raft before I get the shaft. Because no one laughed. And then 2 sprints later, we can see the SRV much farther along in Greybox phase, getting all the main shapes in, beginning the discovery of...
Do you think the mule was taken from Argo assets or Drake? Definitely Drake.
Material breakup, and really just refining the entire model overall. Yeah, you could say it's enough to make one shaft. I'm sorry, I have a problem. To make up for that, here are some follow-up images of the Banu Merchantman from the same time as our Alien Week segment back in June. Mostly to showcase how important having the right FOV on your camera is in avoiding duckbill platypus face.
CIG, don't do this. Don't. What you've done with this is proven to the community that you listen to their whining. And I know you want to listen to the community, but the asinine whining that happens in this community is beyond belief. Now, I know this is probably Jared taking the piss out of Reddit, which is fine. I get it. But I don't like it. Sets bad precedents.
Same ship, correct FOV. Sorry, Ben. And moving from ship to ship feature news, you can see here the first iteration of the vehicle salvage HUD for the upcoming Vulture, Reclaimer, and more. Now on the left are all the details that are target relevant. The remaining surface area, your remaining cargo space.
I missed it. What happened? Basically the images they took of the work in progress of the Banu Merchantman was captured in the wrong FOV. The camera mode they were using to capture those images was set at a higher FOV than it should have been. So you got fisheye lens ship, which is why the Banu Merchantman and in certain angles looked like a fucking flat duckbill when it was actually not.
Extraction rate, and on the right, things like type.
And then meme done, yes, which goes to prove to my point that if you want something changed in Star Citizen, meme it, because CIG hates memes.
Of nozzle, cutter, and tractor, the various attributes you'll need to manage, and present range.
It's not that it's about like stooping down to her level. It's more that there are certain things you want to respond to and there's certain things you don't. If you respond to everything, then everyone feels like all of their complaints and all of their feedback is 100% taken, which means that you'll get people who now will say, oh, well, they listened to us about the duckbill platypus, so they'll listen to us about insert random ass suggestion, which doesn't make any sense, or something that's they're already doing. And it'll just clog up other legitimate things like complaints about balance, or complaints about, or say, not complaints, say feedback. Feedback is a nice neutral term for it.
Distress bacon.
Feedback on other aspects of the gameplay, which are more important for them to deal with, rather than filtering out some dude who had a bad day at work and decided to take it out on CIG because, the elevators fucked him over. And that's the key is clearing the chaff from the actual, like, wheat, the chaff from the wheat, kind of thing.
And then you can see their first, still early implementation in engine, as seen here on the Vulture, and then on the turret from a Reclaimer. Now, for how all this works, what the final implementation looks like with a full UI and VFX, and with the internal functionality that ends with a nice crate of materials that you can sell or trade, well, there's still some time between now and the release of Alpha 3.18, so you can expect to see more as we get closer to release. And as a neat bonus, work on the gimbal system for hull scraping has led to new technology that may eventually change the way all gimbals work. What you're seeing here is variable drag and speed based on size and weight, both for the gimbal itself and the item attached to it. What this ultimately means is more customization for players, allowing for faster, smoother gimbals with smaller, lighter items and weapons, and a potential removal of the size restriction for weapons on gimbals, letting players one day use them with weapons of a hardpoint's maximum size, with the requisite trade-off in drag and speed. It's a great example of work for one system potentially leading to improvements in another.
That's actually pretty big. Let me explain what he just said. So right now, we have a system where if you have, say, a size 4 mount, you can put a size 4 turret on it, but that size 4 turret can only have, say, 2 size 2s or 2 size 3s. Or if you have a gimbal mount, you can put a gimbal on it, which is a size 3, a size 4 gimbal, but it only has a size 3 gun. What this allows them to do is to put a size 4 gun or size 4 attachment on a size 4 gimbal, but that will end up being slow. But if you put a size 1 on there, it'll allow you to be really, really fast because it's designed to hold a heavier weapon or heavier mount, so it can move a lot faster. So they developed that. I guess it's not necessarily just connected to these two ships. It's just something they could apply to other ships if they wanted to, which again sounds like, well, I didn't do that before. And I don't know. I thought it was for balance reasons, but he said potential. Yes, this isn't 100% going to happen. This could be used to improve that, which would be interesting. We already canned for size 1 guns. Yeah, but size 1 guns was more of a, like, the difference between gimbaling a size 1 and a size 2 in terms of tracking wasn't that much because they weren't. So somewhat matching hard points. Effectively, it means that you can have larger. So in theory, this could mean that you could take, say, the bespoke turret that's on the front of which is a size 3, I think. On the front, or size 2 on the front of the Mustang, remove that turret and slap a size 3 gun instead on that thing with a gimbal and still have it work, in theory. It seemed like it was a concession more than a physics limitation. Yeah, I always thought it was a balance thing, not a physics limitation. But there's a lot of physics limitations in video games that you don't realize are physics limitation.
And then, in preparation of one of the biggest Life in the Verse changes coming sometime next year, the Hammerhead just had a sprint retrofitting it with internal power relays, a necessary component of the resource management system that is at the center of everything from engineering gameplay, life support, increased time to kill, on-site repair, and the foundational basis for true multi-crew gameplay. Now, there's still quite a journey ahead for resource management, but it's exciting to see the work beginning to get integrated into the persistent universe proper. Now, of course...
So, I keep doing this, I'm sorry. This is very important because this means a couple of things. We saw a prototype last year, or maybe 2 years ago, of the relay system. The idea being that you have the piping system, which transmits heat and power and fuel. These pipes will go over to the various locations, the various components, and either move away heat, move in power, or move in fuel, depending on what kind of component it is. And they always showed the hammerhead as the example of the prototype they were using, where if you have these, say, you have 2 lines of power that are running from the power plant to all of the points on the ship. But if these nodes at this specific, let's say the back left corner of the hammerhead is taken out, if those nodes are disabled, then you can still have power going to the rest of the ship because you still have the components on the right side. The power lines on the right side that can then run that because they're all connected together. And if you repair those nodes, you can bring that power back up in that region. So this gives players, engineers, the ability to go through and deal with battle damage in a very quick way. Repair, remove, replace kind of thing for these components on these walls as more of kind of like relays. I think that's what they call them, or nodes. And these won't necessarily be your big components, but they're going to be the smaller components that make up most of the stuff. And the fact that they've completely transitioned the hammerhead over to the system to fully test it is a good sign. It means that they're working on prototyping and seeing how well this functions in reality. Does that mean we're getting it in game? Fuck no. There is no chance in hell we are getting that in game in a year. Probably not even until 2024. But it is needed for things like larger group gameplay and possibly for some smaller aspects of Squadron. It's better to use those sorts of things, in engine rather than doing it through like a cutscene or, specifically coded area. Ships that have redundancies. Yeah, and so some ships will be better. Like the Hammerhead, which is a military-grade ship, is designed to be have more redundancies, have more backups, so you can't just take out one part of the ship and destroy it. But like smaller ships, like say light fighters, you take out one specific section of that power relay, it's fucked. So it's got much more, vulnerabilities to it, and other larger ships may not have as many redundancies. So. I'm guessing Q3 2023 is going to be a weird year like this. A weird year like this year? Probably. Let me have my copium ball. No. Yeah, armor is also important. You need to have armor in place for these kind of things to make a lot more sense and a lot of that sort of stuff. But what have been shown that proves that they've done anything other than modeling a box full of cables. They've talked to us about it. The monthly report talked about it, and then they showed this off as well. They also showed off a year ago, like I said, the actual system in place, the prototype system they were running. All that stuff's optional, Drake, right? No. The reality is that it wouldn't make any sense for them to put it into game for us to test if it was only on one ship. They'd have to move over the system to the entirety of all of the other ships, which would take more time than it really needs to until they really understand how it works. And life support, yes, that was the other thing that system is adding is life support and pressure, because you also need those lines to do that as well. So. Q4 of next year would be optimistic. Yeah, I would. It would definitely be more of a 2024 sort of thing. I could see CIG doing it with if say 80% of the ships had it in place, they'd get it done. But it's got to be a priority for them to really push that. They've done it in the past where they've just sat down and did it, but it was a crunch and everybody hated it. So CIG doesn't want to really double down on that until they have all the other systems in place. Yeah. The eternal physical damage is a year away. Not really. The important thing to understand about like the physical damage stuff is that CIG has said many, many times that it's going to take them longer. So I don't think CIG's ever sat down and said it's a year away. John Crew has actually gone the opposite and said it's fucking hard. But they have talked about what they've been doing recently. I think as of like January, they said they have modeled out all of the different damage types. They know what damage types exist. They've talked about it, and they've come down to something like 40 something damage types. I was like, I can't remember exactly. Like they're narrowing down all the lists and then how much damage and what they can do for each component or each type of material that's being used. They want to get as granular as possible because CIG's mentality is if we're building it, we're not fucking making a version 2. We're making the version 1, and that's the version that we're going to use. And we might build off of that version, but we're not scrapping that version and going with version 2 if we can help it. So. Probably is a quantity over quality over quantity thing. And they didn't mention ground vehicles or even armor components yet. Yeah. They showed Squad 42 AI techs working on junction boxes in the vid like 2 months ago. Yeah, there's enough like context clues to show that they're working on it. But in terms of how it works, we don't have that 100% idea yet. Unrelated to current topic, this is really nice setup for chat. I'm glad I don't have to have YouTube and Twitch chat open at the same time. It works until it's nice until it isn't. Sometimes this chat doesn't want to work. Let's finish watching this though. I wanted to bring that up there.
Those are just the updates on the ships that we can currently tell you about ahead of CitizenCon and IAE on this special Showdown Sprint Report. But maybe you're asking yourself, hey, Jared, Ship Showdown 2952 doesn't start for another 4 days. Surely you've got something more than spaceships to show us. Well, it's still a little bit early, but I suppose we can tease this look at recent tests of the UI card system, a brand new way to take building blocks and display it dynamically and diegetically throughout the persistent universe in Squadron 42. Just don't tell anyone.
Mwah. Mwah. All right. Right here. I'm going to enhance. I can't enhance it. Damn it. Right here, though, chat. Right here. That's the good shit right there. That doesn't exist on Argo MPUVs yet. This right here, this is something we have seen it modeled on this ship multiple times in the past and removed and remodeled. This is what I believe to be a utility mount. Now, the MPUV, for its own description, its lore, the way it's been pitched and discussed about, it is designed as a utility vehicle. That's the whole purpose of it. It's called a multi-purpose utility vehicle, MPUV. That's what it's designed to do. It has this functionality in 2 ways. One is that little box underneath of it, that can be swapped out from multiple different components, different versions. So you've got a passenger version, which is effectively the same escape pods that you have and like a Javelin, but it's also the same escape pods you will have on an 890 jump. Can attach themselves to this thing so it can recover escape pods. It's also designed as a rescue and recovery vehicle. But you're not always going to rescue pods. Sometimes you have to rescue pilots, which is why you have a kind of a passenger version you can use. But also, sometimes you need to cut away, portions of a ship to get at a pilot who's been, or let's say a starman who's been stranded. So that itself is designed, I believe, to have a laser cutting tool, or to be a tractor beam, or to be anything else, any other utility you see seen to it, possibly even mining. So that little arm is designed to stick out and kind of be used as kind of its own little weapon. So who knows? I believe the original pitch had it as like an actual grappler arm. It was like a little hand that you could grapple onto things to like steady itself. But yeah. It's a Squadron 42 asset. Yeah, it could be a Squadron 42 asset, but I don't think the NPUV is going to. This will eventually be on all NPUVs. This is a standard kind of feature. This is just probably something they've built for Squadron, and this isn't the first time we've seen this. This has been seen before. We've seen this before, and very early and fairly recently there was a couple of leaks with this.
An outlaw.
Grapple arms, I'll start. Yep. All right, but let's talk about this UI stuff too. Why it's cool.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the Corsair asymmetrical.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see stuff like this. I'm going to pull up the image I used for the thumbnail. This is an older concept of the trade hub. Of like what you would see when you're looking at the manifest of your cargo. This is what you would see. Now, it looks fairly fucking similar to this, doesn't it? Notice how it's rendered in 3D and it's angled.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that the Corsair asymmetrical explorer from Drake is making pretty solid progress through the ship pipeline. That ongoing work on salvage and hull scraping may yet lead to positive changes for the combat experience through gimbal improvements. That work is already underway, retrofitting some of our ships for the enormous change resource management will bring later next year. That
people are more interested in the background behind that UI? What do you mean? That's a Bengal. It's a Bengal, y'all. It's a Bengal hangar. We've had the Bengal hangar in game. Like they've had like those assets have been around in Star Citizen for like 6 years, 7 years. Yeah, it's pretty common. So yeah, it looks interesting, but like that's something we've seen a lot. In fact, they've used it in the Scorpius commercial. So. It was in the Scorpius commercial too. It wasn't just in 2016. That was the Bengal carrier, Bengal hangar. Yeah, they're the same. They're the same.
So what did we learn this week? Well, we learned that
Private hangar? No, it's just they're using it as a test bed. So they've got a. CIG has a couple of like backgrounds. I think it depends on the individual themselves and how they want to like to pull up their testing grounds. Obviously, someone had that lit properly, or they were using that area for lighting because they like the lighting to show off the UI elements, and they kind of built that in there. But this is pretty cool. The reason why it's pretty cool is because it means that they're applying their building blocks to more processes in the game, including holographic processes. Which means we're getting rid of the bullshit. The horrible, terrible stuff that nobody likes is going to finally be going away soon. Does this mean it's going to be done tomorrow? No. Does it mean it's going to be done by 3.18? Probably not. 4.0? You could probably see some of this up 4.0. But yeah. And yeah, as a lot of people pointed out, it is very VR heavy. That is HUD you would see in a VR game, which again, that tracks with CIG's messages that they're very interested in using VR and implementing VR in Star Citizen. So, Star Map reveal when? We'll talk about the Squadron 42 roadmap. Recently, up until very, very recently, the Squadron 42 roadmap has been talking a lot about the new Star Map because it's being built for Squadron 42 first. So.
That the Corsair asymmetrical explorer from Drake is making pretty solid progress through the ship pipeline. that ongoing work on salvage and hull scraping may yet lead to positive changes for the combat experience through gimbal improvements. That work is already underway, retrofitting some of our ships for the enormous change resource management will bring later next year. That FOV is super important if you don't want 36 duck memes of the Banu Merchantman. And that Ship Showdown 2952 begins this Monday, and it's your chance to decide the best of the best over the following month. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee, here inside the performance capture stage, where characters from Star Citizen and Squadron 42 will be brought to life by tremendous performers as time goes on. We'll see you all here next week.
Yeah, as I said from the very beginning, this is big. And from the looks of things, what they're doing is they finished building it. They're just now wiring it, which is, you know, in and of itself pretty complicated. But they're at the stage where they're, you know, putting in the computers and doing all those sorts of things. So it's a good stage. And those people who are wearing hard hats and vests, they may just be staff. That may be the animation staff or the like people who are working for CIG, not like builders, but like people who actually do this stuff. So maybe even IT tech, IT folks. So. But yeah, this means that battle globes might work. This looks very good. Yeah, I've heard some people say that they prefer the flat surfaces, but that sloped surfaces is still going to look fairly good. It gives it some more depth perception, and anything is better than our current Mobiglass and the current Inner Thought system, which is garbage. Did we get a raid? Oh, hey, Inforunners. Running wire at 1,804.562. How y'all doing from Inforunner stream? So I actually commented something, how he secretly hoped Jared would tease the new Mobiglass. Did you see that? Yeah, I'll pull that up from the Twitters. This is Salty Mike, who said, this looks cool, but it's the fact that it looks like it would be simple to add on to. Think cargo. Also, they literally made this thing we never thought they would make in the second image. Yeah, this one, which is my thumbnail right now. And wait until Disco Lander decides to show off the new Mobiglass. All right. Okay, I don't know how he has to add me. All right. Hold on. I'm going to hop onto the Inforunners chat and tell him. X. I don't know if you can hear me. God damn it. Why can't you hear me?
Hey, Paul.
Hey, I'm trying to fix this.
Oh, yep. So now I got to go check polls.
Well, Paul's actually in recording with us.
Oh, are you?
All right, I'm back.
Yeah,
I'm back.
apparently.
Here we go.
Hey, Paul.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
We just sent a whole bunch of people to you.
Yeah, I'm double checking to see make sure it worked.
It's working.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just sent the YouTube people to you just now.
Yeah, okay, good. So, yeah, because I don't know yet. I don't have any.
The VR Twitch guys.
Yes.
And the second batch were VR YouTube guys.
Yeah, the stream's just winding up now. On my screen. So
I'm seeing 103 people. I had like 90 people before. So if you just rated, I don't know if it'll pop up yet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it
did. You're doing office hours, right?
Let me see. Yeah, I'm doing office hours. Chat rate. Hey, there we go. It just popped up.
Yeah, I literally just clicked end stream. So it doesn't work with OBS. You've actually got to do it in the
in there
in the YouTube. So yeah, I'm gonna have to do that twice now. So yeah.
Cool.
But cool.
Hello, y'all.
That's our first YouTube raid. But
yeah.
Yay.
It's a bit complicated because you got to go in and.
Certainly a lot more complicated than Twitch.
Oh, way more complicated. That'll change though, given time. I reckon I'll change it to a command. Anyway, what are you talking about on your show today, Paul?
Talking about the ISC, and then we're doing the Squad 42 roadmap. So.
Did you actually get to see the new HUD stuff? Have you watched it
Yeah,
yet?
we watched it. I watched it before this, and then I watched it again to show off about how cool it is. So,
Well, us away.
It is
We
sexy.
saw it live, so yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. Changes the game. Change the game.
yeah. All right, cool. Thanks for it. I was going to walk you through to see if you had it. It's very complicated because everyone has to be you have to yes, rating is a thing, chat you on YouTube, but you have to subscribe to the channel and they have to subscribe to you, and then you have to put them on a list that allows them to raid you. It's this whole song and dance.
Yeah, we'll get it sorted back the other way because we've still got to add you if you wanted to raid us as an example. But yeah. Well, we'll love you and leave you because it's lunchtime here, so we're gonna go have lunch. But have
Enjoy
fun.
Lunch.
I'll come jump back in and lurk and annoy you later.
All right, later, y'all. All right, welcome everyone from InfoRunners. This is the office hours where we talk about Star Citizen lore, Star Citizen news, and just in general, we just hang out and chill. It's similar to the InfoRunners, but they stream earlier because they're in Australia, and I'm a little bit later as a result. Pub Informers, yes. For those of you who don't know, I'm also a member of the InfoRunners. I join them quite frequently and talk. We actually just did an episode on why you should be voting for the PTV. So, welcome everybody. This UI looks amazing for VR later on. Yes, it very much seems like it's future-proofing it. It was a bit different, but it did swap us over. That's good to hear. This is fairly new. So you can't just raid new streamers on YouTube. No, both of the streamers have to be subscribed to each other, and you have to be put each other to a list. You have to allow yourself put yourself onto a list that allows other streamers to be able to see you. There's no option to select anybody can raid you. Later on, like 5-10 years, in my opinion, probably. You'll probably have people hack the VR section sooner than that, but, you know. But welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for all those, let's see. Danger Dave for that 8 months. Thank you, my man. Let's do some bunch of stuff in here for y'all. The Astro Runner or the Info Pub? I'm the Info Pub on the Info Runners. I like that name. What's your conspiracy theory on the Kurthok? My conspiracy theory is that they're actually robots. That the Xi'an built a sentient alien race, and that the thing that the Xi'an are currently saying is why they lost their homeworld is a lie. They claim that it was a terraformation accident where they used a terraforming station to attack one nation state, effectively one house attacked another house, and it caused a chain reaction, destroyed their homeworld, so they had to flee and then reunite under one house to survive. But my theory is that the Kurthok were actually a sentient AI that were built by the Xi'an, and the Xi'an were using them for war because at the time they were very warlike, and they decided that they were better fighting with for each other than the different houses. They turned on the houses, and the houses had to flee the homeworld, because the AI either turned on the terraformer or made it impossible for them to live on the planet. So that's why the Kurthok are not. That's why the Kurthok are the spirit enemies, the blood enemies of the Xi'an, and it seems to be one-sided. The Kurthok don't seem to be pushing into Xi'an space, and the one time the Kurthok actually actively fucked over the Xi'an, they did it in such a pinpoint maneuver, so simultaneously, that only a machine would be able to do something like that. And they did it in a way without exploiting it. They caused the Xi'an to fall into a civil war. And at that stage, the Kurthok could have easily circled around and pushed into Xi'an territory and started making major inroads, but they didn't. The Kurthok assassinated the entire royal family of the Xi'an and did nothing, and let the Xi'an fight amongst each other. And that's exactly the type of tactic, if I were someone who was trying to defend myself, and I had the ability to do this, that would be the exact type of tactic I'd use to keep the heat off of me, as to send a signal I don't want to fuck with you, but if you keep fucking with me, I'm going to have to deal with this problem in a way that you can understand. And it seemed to have worked, because since then, the Xi'an no longer really deal with the Kurthok. They've kind of defended their territories against the Kurthok. They've kind of stayed in their own territory, but they went the opposite direction towards humanity. It matches up with the AI, the hatred of AI in the Star Citizen universe, how AI always flips on its creators. Not in the, Skynet, but more in the way that it never works properly. It would explain why the Kurthok were not taking advantage of an obvious way of winning. And it matches, like I said, matches up with the whole like AI sort of thing. So the oldest race are a bunch of liars, eh? Not liars. They bend the truth to see what they to match with what they want. And we don't know if they're the oldest race. The Banu could be older than the Xi'an. We just don't know, because we don't have any records of it. And technically the oldest race is the Hadesians, but they've done super weapon themselves into oblivion. So the Spirit Wars. It sounds a little like Mass Effect. It actually sounds exactly like not Mass Effect, but Battlestar Galactica. Hey, Ghost! Thank you so much for that, becoming a member on YouTube. My theory is that the Kurthok are AI. They're artificial intelligence created by the Xi'an as a warrior race that then eventually, as a warrior group that then turned on their masters, not because master's bad, but because we're fighting this war and killing each other when they're fighting wars over things they don't need to fight. Kind of why are we doing with this? So, Paul, were all the Xi'an houses in one system? No. When the royal house was assassinated, so the royal house is always one house. It's not all the houses. The way that the Xi'an work is you have a imperial household, and that is the house that controls all of the empire. And then there are individual houses which are in control of, these are the major houses, are in control of major sections of of it. So you've got a house that builds all ships, a house that makes all the food, a house that makes all the clothing, a house that builds all the buildings. You might have a house that builds, residential homes, and then you have another house that builds commercial homes, and another house that builds factories. Each house is in charge of one major aspect of society, and then there are smaller houses that feed into the major houses. So, a construction house needs a mining house to be able to produce any homes, because it needs to have the materials to feed into its construction to be able to function. How do I know all of this? It's written down. There's the Xi'an language guide has all of this. It's all written down. You just got to read it. I read. So when the Kurthok assassinated, it was the last house before House Cray. The thing about the Xi'an houses is that they have to have a certain genetic marker in their blood to be able to rule. Only those with that specific marker can. Yeah, that's great putting it. All the lore exists, you just have to find it. And that's the hard part. Gamers don't read. And so when the Kurthok assassinated the royal house, they destroyed that genetic marker. They knew that the Xi'an royal household needed to have this marker. So if they didn't have that marker, then they couldn't legitimately claim they controlled the Xi'an household. chaos ensued. And it was so precision that it was at the exact same time all across the empire. Every single member of the imperial household was killed. Adult to children, almost at the exact same time. Pinpoint precision. Gamers also don't look up. That is true. Well, someone asked about the whole thing. So, so do they hide the info in books? Got it. Yes, they do. Spirit Wars 2, Electric Boogaloo. So like gene stealers from Warhammer 40k. Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, you could say there's some of that. It's just a way of saying like lineage. It's like a way of saying like, you know, I think it's a sci-fi way of saying inheriting, you know, the legitimate inheritance. And I think it's partially taken inspiration from things like the Japanese imperial system, where the Japanese claim to have an unbroken line of emperors from the very first emperor of Japan to today. That the current emperor of Japan is the descendant of the very first emperor of Japan in terms of the genetic line, in terms of the line of legitimate heirs. That's that kind of concept. Like, you have to have this genetic marker. But the Krthok wiped that genetic marker out entirely. So the Xi'an went to war. I forgot the name of it. There's two names for it. There's the Dark, and then there's the Troubled Waters or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. I always screw up the names because I always get them reversed. But that sent them into effectively a civil war, because now they had no idea who to rule. So the houses started to turn on each other and fight for power. And eventually it got so bad that a bunch of houses got together and said, fuck this, we're faking this shit. So they all threw their support behind House Cray, because the young daughter of House Cray, they said, she has the genetic marker. Miraculously. Maybe it's a mutation. We don't know. She has a genetic marker. Look at our totally not doctored genetics report. And it just so happened that a bunch of other powerful houses were supporting House Cray, so it ended the war. And the current emperor is the son of that empress, or emperor, of the original woman who stopped the war. So when you say, do the turtle people lie? The answer is when they open their mouths. But it's not always it's not always untrue. It's just a stretch of the truth. So in theory, could you just use a genetic targeting bioweapon, just remove the royalty every time they piss off the UE or Krthok? Yes, they could. But here's where this gets involved into the interesting parts of Star Citizen lore. The current emperor has no legitimate heir. There is not a child of the current emperor. Meaning, even though it's obviously fake, the fake emperor who has the fake genetic line has no legitimate heir, and he's getting close to the end of his life. Ben, sub to you Twitch. Thank you, Ghost. Thank you. Thank you for putting your money where the mouth is. That's always nice to know people want to support. So, spoiler alert much? It's not a spoiler. We know they don't have one yet. They could decide that they had a child, but we know that as of right now they don't, which is a lot of interest to the UEE. Xi'an Stevlor 2, Grey Goo. Yeah. What's the Xi'an lifespan? It's hard to tell. But we know they can live up to 1,000 years. The current one is around 600, I believe. Maybe 700 years old. The current emperor, I can't remember which, but the current emperor was either born the same year as first contact with humans, or ascended to become emperor the same year as first contact with humans, which was in 2530. And it's currently 2952. Yeah, I do that all the time. Do I ever incorporate video game culture into my teaching? I do. But only when it makes sense. I use lots of other references as well, but I do as well, because my kids know. I am his child, Astro. He hasn't made it public yet. What could possibly go wrong? That's the thing. That's like, and when I hear people say like, oh, Star Citizen lore doesn't matter, it's like, these are the story points which CIG has built. And these story points will be there so that you, as a player, and yes, I'm pointing at you, Doug, you're not looking at the screen right now because you're listening to this at work. I'm pointing at you. I'm pointing at the screen now. You're seeing this. I'm pointing at you. You can change. You will have an influence on it. That's the whole point of it. And we talked with Dave Haddock on Lore Citizen Podcast. Lore Citizen Podcast, yeah, as Twitch or youtube.com/TheAstroHistorian to go check out Lore Citizen, when we talked an interview with narrative director Dave Haddock. That's one thing he talked about, is that when he and Chris sat down to kind of work out the narrative focus at the very beginning of the campaign, Chris was very clear that he wanted the ability for players to impact the game, and so that every time you logged into the game, it wouldn't be the same game you played, to encourage players to continue to play, but also to feel like there is progression. So there are several story points that have already been built out across the entire game world that players will have a hand in controlling. One of those is the fate of the Xi'an. Another is the fate of the Tevarin. Another is the fate of Synth World. And also things like, for instance, likely, they haven't really made this clear yet, but who controls Pyro will be one of those things that players can help they get their hands into. Possibly even defending against Vanduul invasions of various UE locations. Possibly another those kind of things. So they said specifically, Paul's in my walls. Fair argument, but you're forgetting one thing. I'm in your walls. What was it? Oh, the fate of Earth. That was one of the examples they used, was if the Vanduul are going to sack Earth, players will have a chance to stop it. Yeah, got me once at work, freaked me out. Oh, I didn't know did he do a reaction video to it? I didn't know that. I have to go check that out. He's never done a reaction video to me. We hung out and did streams like, can I do reaction videos? I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, dude, go for it. He's never done that before. I didn't hear about that now, Kasimi. I'll have to watch it. I'll have to react to his react. Let me see. Reacception. I'm stealing Mike's content. You see that, Mike? I'm stealing your content. Oh, he did put it up there. It's 8 hours ago. Time. Okay. React to the react. React to the react. All right.
To watch an AstroPub video.
Oh.
I don't remember the last time I watched one, because I never have watched an AstroPub video on stream, because he used to make really, really long videos and it just wasn't great for that kind of format. This one's the first 5 star systems, Star Citizen lore, 14 minutes long. Perfect.
Nice.
Let's check it out.
My name is Paul Shelley, and welcome to the Astro Historian.
Wait, he's not Paul AstroPub Batman Shelley, however he says it. He's got like 14 names.
This is a series where I talk about all things sci-fi and space. Gotta keep it professional, Mike. Today, I'm going to be doing another list video, but with a bit of a twist. I will be following up on my first system survey, where I talk about the lore of individual systems from lore, with a list of the first few systems we are likely to get in Star Citizen. Some of this will be obvious, as we know the first 3.
Did you see that? Did you see the sun perfectly in the middle of the thing here? Of the
Thank
logo?
you, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Watch it again.
Systems we are likely to get in Star Citizen. Some of this will be obvious, as we know.
I actually planned that out.
The rest are very much up in the air. So I'll be telling you the lore and my reasoning behind why those systems are going to be added into the game first. But before all that, I want to thank y'all for watching these videos. The last videos have absolutely exploded in views and caused some great growth on the channel. So if this is the second time you've enjoyed one of my videos, think about subscribing yourself. And if you're like me and absolutely need to know lore exactly when it comes out, then ring the bell. If you've already done that, then hitting the like button on this video will help spread the word.
I think he's so he's split out. So he has AstroPub, which is like his gaming channel, and then this is his lore channel. So we might as well just link that right now to y'all.
Was there systems that CIG didn't cover in the Lore Maker's Guide to the Galaxy? No, everything's been covered in Lore Maker's Guide. They went through all of them. So, Reactionception, yes.
There you go.
So with that out of the way, let's talk about the first 5 systems of Star Citizen. The first system is one we already know and love, Stanton.
Do we love it?
Stanton was originally discovered in 2851 by a nav jumper by the name of Tashi Aaron. When the UEE explored the system, they found it to be an almost perfect system for their kind of settlement. 4 planets in the green. By the way, for those of you who don't know, that's the reason why it's called the Aaron Halo. It's because it's named after Tashi Aaron, who discovered it in the first place. Zone, 3 terrestrial super-Earths, 1 low-mass gas giant with a breathable atmosphere, and a dozen moons. To make it even better, the system had a direct large jump point to Terra, one of the most valuable trade hubs of the Empire. There was a catch, though, as the system was already settled by outlaws and those wishing to live apart from the UEE. This forced the UEE to declare eminent domain, as they had done many times in the past. However, that doesn't seem to involve complicated legal battles in the universe of Star
So this is where the Ninetales come in.
Citizen, unless the might of a UEE battle fleet is your idea of a court case. Unfortunately for the UEE, the discovery of the system came at a terrible time, with the Empire still recovering from the economic turmoil of the fall of the Mezzers 50 years before. There was not a lot of incentive or drive for people to settle new worlds, but the system was far too lucrative to give up. So the government seemed to be stuck between a rock and a hard place. But they tried to salvage this situation by building what would become the floating city of Orison as a military headquarters to monitor the system, in hopes that the naturally breathable gas giant could become a military dry dock. However, even that wasn't enough, as the system quickly became a money pit, especially after the commander of the system, Admiral Pavlina Marlin, proved far too reckless with her ships and managed to crash an Aegis Javelin, the UES Flysa, in an operation to stop some illegal mining, killing the entire crew and destroying the ship. It was lucky for them that ArcCorp was looking to consolidate. That's the Javelin on Daymar, by the way. It's the UES Flysa. I didn't know that. Did you know this? Yeah. And expand their production of fusion drives, a process often too dangerous for most solar systems. React to the react. Situation, they approached the UEE with an offer for one of the continents on the 3rd planet in the system. This gave the government an idea. They countered by offering the entire planet to the company, and soon found 3 other companies to sell the rest of the.
We need to watch more of these. This is actually really cool. I guess it's really cool because it's the system we play in, but the other ones will feel less, like there'll be less weight behind it, but this is actually quite cool.
System 2. In return, the UEE made the companies promise to maintain law and order of the system independently of them, to reduce government spending in Stanton. Today, the system holds the record for the fastest development in human history, with Stanton 3, now known as ArcCorp, managing to create a planet-spanning city through a process of subletting development of the planet to hundreds, if not thousands, of different companies like Redwind and Gemini Weapons. The other 3 planets are owned by Hearson Dynamics, Crusader Industries, and Microtech, all of which have used their new homes to improve their wealth sufficiently. As a result, the system is known as the commercial capital of the empire, where you can get just about any product made by humans at a fairly reasonable price. While the emergence of the violent Ninetales gang and frequent invasions by
Maybe that's why.
What's happening?
Lore argument why everything is so cheap.
So Mike has never reacted to one of my videos, so I'm doing the react to the react just to see what Mike had to say. So, yeah, I do an entire thing called system survey where I already did one for Castro. The next one I'm going to do is on Nyx or Pyro, and do basically where I do like the old lore maker's guide, but I tie in everything I possibly can into it. So,
you know, could be that. Like every armor, every weapon, everything is so cheap. But because it's the commercial hub of the entire human race,
everything's made in Stanton.
Maybe that makes a little sense. I don't know.
Threat have caused some turmoil. The system is still seen as one of the safer systems of the UEE and has held many Invictus and IAE celebrations over the last few years, with no sign of that changing. The next system in the game is going to be Pyro. First discovered in 2469, it was found by accident when sensors of a freighter. Fun fact, I originally was going to go, nice. When I said 69 on that, I was like, nah, it doesn't work. Owned by a corporation called Pyrotechnic Amalgamated, picked up some strange readings while on a trade route and filed a report, which was mostly forgotten about. 46 years later, in 2493, Pyrotechnic was seeking new mining territories, so they began reviewing old scan records and found the original report from years before. They dispatched an explorer to the region, only to formally discover Pyro and chart its environs. This survey noted the overall disarray of the planetary system, the difficulty of finding transportable goods, and the unlikelihood of successfully terraforming anything there. Pyro is a system hostile to just about everything. Its star is undergoing a prolonged nova phase and sends out harmful radiation, which is so strong it can damage ships traveling through. It has 6 planets, 5 of which are terrestrial and difficult to terraform, let alone live on, and one depressing green and yellow gas giant which proves difficult to tap for hydrogen. In fact, the system is so chaotic that Pyro 4 is slowly being dragged into the gas giant of Pyro 5. Undeterred, Pyrotechnic set about...
So, the one thing that I question is this lore up to date, right?
Sort
because
of.
It seemed like they were making some tests.
So, sort of. I'll explain a little bit later, but it's mostly up to date. It's still not fully up to date. This is still the overview of what we have, and it still matches up mostly. Because you can still live on some of these planets, but there's a difference between, say, Microtech, which fully actually has a fucking like ecosystem, and the fucking algae that lives on Pyro 2. Those are 2 different locations. The lichen on the side of rocks is technically life, but it sure as hell ain't, a savanna biome, even in the shithole that is Hurston. And that's the difference. And that's what CIG is trying to, they're trying to make it a little bit more interesting, but it's lichen on rocks is the most life you're going to get on some of these planets. So, and lichen is actually fairly radiation resistant. Some of those very simple life forms are. So, someone wake up, Mike.
Pyro seem more habitable and alive.
Thank you, Loken.
And
Did Loken rate me in
useful
NC?
than ever before.
Trying to tame the wild system by building a station in orbit of the 6th planet from the star, the best candidate for long-term habitation, and the easiest to extract resources. While the company built the station, they quickly went to work seeding the planets with what life they could and extracted resources from mines in Pyro 2. However, it didn't take long for the entire operation to bankrupt the company, leaving the mostly complete station as the only truly large-scale habitable location in the system. Since then, the system has been overrun by outlaws, rebels, and pirates, quickly becoming a place of... By the way, Loken, thank you for playing. That was really fun yesterday. If you missed it, myself, Loken, Tyrek, and Ferric all played Deathwing Space Hulk Deathwing, the 40K game that came out a while ago. It was actually really fun, really interesting. We had a good time. Loken did a baller ass last stand. It was great. Check it out on YouTube if you haven't. It'll be up on the VODs channel eventually, but it's kind of in my video section, I think. So, routine gang violence and raids. Today, the biggest player and ruler of the old station, today known as Ruin Station, remains the politically motivated, violent, anti-alien gang known as Xenothreat. However, they aren't the only powers at play. Gangs like the persistent headhunters, the cult-like fire rats, and the vigilant overlords also vie for power in this hostile system.
And we have overlord armor.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what the first one you said was. And the fire rat armor, I think, is coming, right?
Overall, the system is coming, and
lawless,
Headhunters
and hard to live in.
Headhunters is one of those ones that we've got lore about, but we haven't seen yet. But they have been mentioned a couple of times.
But still manages to entice people to try their luck out of desperation,
You want to be a fire
stupidity, or
Maybe
lust.
Am I watching a video, Salty Mike watching you? Yes. All right, let me argue this fact. Salty Mike has reacted to just about every single member of the Star Citizen community at some point. This is the first time he's actually done a reaction video of one of my videos, so I'm doing extra content because I want to see what he's trying to say. So, Xenothreat, Fire Rats, Overlords, and Headhunters. Those are the 4 that we know. There have been other ones that have been mentioned in the past, but it's hard to tell if they're still around. For instance, Nova Riders are probably there, and probably the Dusters, because the Nova Riders and the Dusters are pretty common all over the UEE. The only one that's likely just local to Stanton is the Ninetails, because they're a weird gang. I did an entire video on them too, so we'll tell Mike to react to this. I mean, yeah, it's to be even extra. But
after Pyro, the next system in game will be the Nyx system. Discovered at the height of the UEE's territorial expansion, just after the First Avaran War.
Sorry, guys, I'm eating cherries. This kind of implies that Astro knows the timeline of things. It almost feels like they've taken so long that Pyro and Nyx might come together, or
they are probably.
There might be other, I don't know, but I guess he's right.
We know that Pyro's coming out next, and Nyx is coming out after Pyro. They may come down together, which would be great, but we know that the thing is that in reality, you can't get to Nyx without going through Pyro. I did an entire video on Rust Society too. They're pretty cool, but they're not a gang. The Rust Society's a gang. They're like a guild or a union almost.
Because he's going in the order in which they're developing at this point, but I just don't claim to know anything about what they're doing, because it's constantly in motion and constantly changes.
In 2582, by the nav jumper Carla Larry, the system is mostly unremarkable, especially since it sits at the edge of a dark nebula, which shrouds the entire system. This makes it difficult to scan and navigate, and the lack of valuable resources made this system a dud since it was first discovered.
And
sporting
after
only
Nyx,
3 terrestrial worlds, which are all very hostile
just speculating.
to life. Its only value lay in the Glacium Ring, a dense asteroid belt which rings the entire system. A mining company built a small base inside the largest of these asteroids, now known as Delamar, but once the easier minerals were extracted, even they abandoned the system. It was then that a group of anti-UEE radicals took over the base in 2618, seeing the nebula and thick asteroids as the perfect means to conceal themselves.
And I know some of the lore behind this system.
Mike
was the start of the fall of the Messers. Is
one of the
right here, apparently.
From the Messers, who ruled the UEE at the time. They renamed the base Levski after 19th century Bulgarian freedom fighter Vasily Levski, who died trying to revolt against the Ottoman Empire. Though the Messers have fallen, the radicals of Levski remain. Still dedicated to overthrow the government they still see as corrupt and evil. However, they also know their best defense remains their natural camouflage, and by keeping more violent criminals out of the system, they feel they can remain hidden. Those are the systems we know for sure are coming next in Star Citizen. So note that the last 2 are my best guesses based on what these systems bring to Star Citizen and their difficulty of production. The next system is likely going to be Castra.
I already did a system overview of this system in my first system survey video. How many times can I say system in a sentence? Which you can check out in the top right. However, I will give you a quick breakdown of what the system is and why I believe it will be the next system after Nyx. Discovered in 2544, in the middle of the Devaran War, this system has always been tied to humanity's relationship with the Xi'an, as it lies close to the border with the Xi'an Empire. While it is generally an unimpressive system with only 2 planets, its location made it essential to the military, who turned the second planet in the no, Mike isn't the reason why the Redeemer got nerfed. The Redeemer got nerfed because CIG had nerfed it. It wasn't even that one. Aren't overlords technically vigilantes hunting down actual criminals? Yes, they are vigilantes. That's why I call them the vigilant overlords. But they're still a gang because they're not abiding by any law. I mean, I guess the UE is technically just a big gang, but yeah, they're an outlaw group because they live outside the law. I've been using that term because people use pirates so much in Star Citizen. It's like, it's not technically true. There's plenty of people who live outside the UE's protection, but are not pirates. And that's why I prefer the term outlaws, because that's its original interpretation. If the original meaning of outlaw did not mean criminal or pirate or anything else like that. It just meant someone who lives outside the protection of the law. So if you live in an area that has no government or less government or that kind of stuff. So the lowriders are actually, the Nova Riders are the new version of the lowriders. The lowriders no longer exist, as far as I know. But the Nova Riders are, because the lowriders were this very ancient initial pirate gang, became different. And the Dusters are also, but they're not necessarily Stanton-based. Nova Riders are a multiple systems. It's, if you read the Booty Call pirate radio lore updates, they talk a little bit about them. So CIG doesn't watch videos like ours and immediately change that. They don't do that. If anything, what happens is someone will make a video and the people will talk about it and they'll show it to CIG and other people will add to it. But CIG has done many things. Many people have said many things to CIG that have gotten very much traction. Noobifire did an entire great video about why LTI is fucking terrible and should be removed, but they didn't change shit. So CIG will only change things if they feel like they need to change it. The system into a fortress, building the Darkside Rider rovers. I don't know.
Tallest mountain on the planet.
I'd have to take a look at that. Maybe from the new lore bits that I read.
After the 19th century U.S. Army general, it was an impressive feat of engineering. Built above the cloud layer, it earned the name Island in the Sky, and was the backbone of the UEE military strategy against a possible future Xi'an invasion. As such, the planet was given a rather bland and poignant name of Castra Command, shortened by most to just Cascom.
It was like a, what is the name in Stellaris where you build your space station up with a bunch of weapons? What do they call those then?
It's like the name of it, Booty Call.
It's like not a garrison, but it's not a bulwark. There's something that it's like, you need to cross this.
Good night, Jordan.
To us, and it's
I'll see you tomorrow.
Going to be a bad time. Kind of sounds like, that's what they were going through. No, it's not called a starbase. It's a type of starbase in Stellaris. I forget too. Citadel.
Bastion?
No, that's like the
Killbox
rank of it.
Name it retains to this very day.
Somebody will say it.
Not only was the planet heavily fortified and armed, its orbital station was home to squadrons of bombers and other large fleets, which would use the first planet of the system as target practice, thus earning it the name Bullseye. However, as the Cold War with the Xi'an thawed, the military presence in Castra began to disappear, and more civilians called the planet home. As the UEE and Xi'an opened trade relations, Castra became a thriving waypoint for traders heading to and from the two empires, allowing for even more growth. And this even convinced the famed parts manufacturer Kruger to make it their new headquarters. My reason for putting Castra on this list is simple. It's small, and it represents a style of structure we won't have had in any of the other systems, a military system. It's said that much of the original structures of the base remain, meaning there's the possibility for the planetary team to create new styles, which we will see
It would be cool to have a military system
in other locations of the verse in a
would
smaller,
probably be
more
very
compact
safe.
scale to experiment with. Its connection to both Pyro and Nyx also creates an interesting dynamic,
giving it 2 active jump points for the developers to test, all wrapped up into one easy planetary package. Now, last on this list is a little different.
You could
because
try,
we
Hannah.
know for sure it's in production. We just don't know when it will land. The Odin system. Discovered in 2532, Odin was one of the first systems humanity
because Odin is a big part of Squadron.
discovered during our initial exploration.
I say that as well.
Beyond the solar system. While there
There's
was
the
no
coil.
real candidates for terraformation,
There might be some UE assets they can pull from Squadron 42 by then. Yeah, like there's a lot of reasons why Castra makes sense. It's an easy win. It's a take the W. It's a simple W for them. They can pull assets from Squadron. They can. It's really undeveloped. So it's you've got Sherman and that's about it. And then you have military bases. So it could give them an opportunity to build, like, say, tiny military bases as outposts instead of building outposts, which they can then copy paste into other planets that have military outposts. Pretty simple. Just like what they're doing with the frontier outposts and the frontier ruins right now for Pyro. And it's just literally only 2 planets. It's just 2. One of them's just a giant waste of space, and the other one is, Cascom. So it's easier for them to build. The hardest thing they have to do is the landing zones, but the landing zone will be a lot simpler for them to build. So, like Magnus might be. Towhill probably not, because they have to develop a lot of stuff with water. Magnus is probably the only other one that I'd argue is definitely easy. The problem is Magnus is much bigger. It's not just, a couple of planets. It's like 4 or 5, if I believe, maybe even more. And there's at least one landing zone that we have, which would Drake, and it's very similar to, they can just copy and paste the Hurston stuff because a lot of that stuff is going to be the same, which they're already building. And that's the point. Montreal is going to build these eventually. So
planets were rich with various
But my Drake,
resources
I know.
ripe for industrial exploitation. The first planet in the system is a unique one, as it doesn't exist anymore. Known today as the Coil, this former planet is now a dense cluster of asteroids, rich in minerals, but also home to dangerous electric storms, which give outlaws and pirates easy cover. All that
Mr.
remains
Olsen,
of
thank
Odin
you.
1 is its solitary moon, Gainey, which still drifts near the remains of its former planetary partner. Odin 2 is a mostly
By the way, that's Olsen from Monster Tech, man. Thanks for being awesome. I'm going to be picking up something pretty cool from there. Very, very excited about that.
uninhabitable world.
It could be.
Keyboard.
It
Between my
houses
sticks,
various weapons
maybe?
testing facilities where hazardous and dangerous
Yeah, 3
tests
planets, 3
are
jump
conducted,
points.
along with the occasional Arctic military training group who uses the small bases as training
Doxing.
facilities for hazardous environment
Sorry.
training. Odin 3
Promoting.
holds evidence of
3 planets, 3 jump is okay. They should put LT on everything anyone purchases spending money on. I agree, but see, and that's basically what Nubify was arguing. And CIG said, fuck you. So, Castra. Castak, I think Castak is headquartered in Castra as well, I believe. If I remember correctly, they are. And I forgot to mention that in my system survey, and I feel like I'm going to get railed for that, but not Hadrian. It could give it another spoke and Pyro and connects to Castra. That's true, but if you already build Castra, Castra is easier to build than Hadrian, which is itself a military system. And so you would build Castra first and then build Hadrian using the assets you develop for Castra. Then it becomes, but it's a much bigger system. So it's a little bit different of a different design style. So you take the easy W, and then you wouldn't move on to Hadrian because you've already built that style. You'll come back to it later. Odin is Squadron 42. By the time they get Castra out, we're going to be close to Squadron 42. Magnus is another big issue, though. If it's a Montreal team, it should be ready by next week. Well, that's what I was saying. Montreal team is designed to build these systems. That's what they're here for. So ancient life in its rocks, which is quickly being eroded as company uses the planet to test massive scale weapons on the surface, including a test which was recorded by civilians in the area of a massive glowing delta-shaped blast impact cutting directly into the surface of the world. The last planet of the system is a gas giant and home to a UE-owned automated refueling depot and mining operation, which has caused the cost of fuel to be artificially low. Over the years, the value of this system has diminished, but there are still...
So this is where, like, paying attention to the lore will be like, all right, so I buy fuel here and I deliver it to there. you know?
Companies like Shubin Interstellar.
This is what I've been. It's what I try to tell you before. Base to try and extract as much as they can from the coil. However, the slow decay of the system has encouraged slavers and gangs to set up shop in the system. The latest being the notorious OMC, a former weapons company that has morphed into a violent outlaw gang, trying to wrench control of the system from the UAE.
Crucial,
it's also the main location for Squadron 42, so we know that it will be added to the game sooner rather than later. However, because it's likely not going to make it into Star Citizen until after Squadron 42 releases, I believe that Castra is still a better bet for the first system after Nyx. So that was the lore of the first systems we are likely to see in Star Citizen. I'd like to thank you for watching.
These videos
I'd like
are
to thank those on
amazing.
screen now who support me on Patreon to keep this content going.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm currently trying to raise enough to hire an editor who will help me increase the quality and quantity of videos coming, including a timed exclusive where I cover the entire history of the Star Citizen universe. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, think about joining my Patreons for as little as $5 a month.
Hell
For
yeah.
now, let me know if you'd like me to do another one of these videos. What systems do you think will make it after Nyx? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, remember, Ex Historia ad Astra.
I don't know what the hell that means at the end, but hey, in the end,
From history to the stars.
the lore of the game can be really, really helpful for you playing the game. And I used to, like, my first videos, if you go to my Salty Mike YouTube channel and look at my first 2 videos, I think, they were the crappiest version of what he just did here. Like 10 years ago, you know, however long ago it was. They were the absolute dog crap versions of this. And it was like, I looked at the lore in the jump points or in whatever.
Hey, when will they release the new Nubby Glass? Will it be version 3.0? Yeah, it'll be version 3.0. You're asking what version it'll be version 3.0, but it'll probably come out in 4.0 at the earliest. Probably not even then. Hey, man, working late tonight. Thanks for keeping me. No problem, Mark.
Posts that they made about the star systems and went, if you were a miner, this would be a great place for you to be because there's tons of minerals. But if you're a salvager, this would be a great place for you to be as well because there's lots of piracy. So there's going to be lots of ships to salvage and wrecks all over the place and stuff like that. So if even all the way back then, I always looked at it from that perspective of like, what would you do as a career in this game and all those things. And it's what excited me for the game. But Astro, that was awesome. Thank you for that. And I'm glad
for watching.
For whoever posted this in our video React Request channel on Discord. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have no idea. People can do that. Oh, and we got a raid. Thank you, Captain Richard. Welcome, everyone, to Captain Richard's stream. I was just reacting to the reaction of a video of mine. I made a video, Mike reacted to it, and I was reacting to Mike's reaction. How y'all doing, Captain Richard? Welcome, everyone, to the Captain's Table. Welcome to the Office Hour stream. This is where we talk about Star Citizen. We sit down, we talk about Star Citizen, we talk about Star Citizen news, updates, and lore, and stuff like that. So, welcome. How y'all doing? It's a streamer rating a streamer reacting to another streamer. You're stealing content, that's all. That's good. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you. I say thank you, Mike, for reacting. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hopefully, you feel free to react to any of the other ones. I would suggest, if you're interested, if any of you are, in learning more about Castra, I did a full system survey about it. So this is getting out of hand. How you doing there, Richard? What were you working on? Let me tell you the reason why we're here. Yeah. Record scratch. I guess, yep, that's me. I guess you're wondering how I got here. Lots of Siege of Origin today, and then accidental porn. Best kind of porn. Stealing it back from him. Go watch Mike. Mike is always a good guy, and he does a lot of good reaction videos. He kind of listens to, like, watches a lot of other people's stuff and puts a lot of context. He does a lot of stuff like I do, but Mike like Captain Richard and freaking Board Gamer and so many of us have been around for so goddamn long that we actually have a lot of historical information that we can plug into the context for people for things, you know. I stared at the abyss and I saw streamers. Did he show you his chess piece, Halkin? Is that how he taught you about the birds and the bees? But many days there too much salt in the world. Paul, please keep doing what you're doing. I love your long length content and lore. Thank you, Ashman. Salt, Mike. I feel like you can do a lot of you can get a lot of like watching Mike in your own kind of way. Mike isn't always salty. Mike, contrary to his name, Mike is often very introspective, I guess you could say. Could I get a follow command for Captain Richard, by the way? I don't know if we have anybody in Twitch land to do that, but. Low cholesterol Mike. Yeah. Low cholesterol salty Mike. Yeah, Mike is, I'd say Mike is one of those streamers where like I'll watch some of his videos and then sometimes I'll be like, I'm not going to watch that video. I'm too much salt in my diet. I'm okay with that. But I watch a lot of his videos of him talking about things or him reacting to stuff or listen to his like his answer the call stuff. He does a really good job of doing like the kind of radio talk show stuff. So I'd say realistic. I'd say he tends to favor, I wouldn't say he's super pessimistic. I would say that Mike tends to be more pessimistic, but tends towards neutral. He's New Jersey. He's from New Jersey. He's very New Jersey. And it's like, if I don't see it in my hands, if I'm not seeing you do this, if I'm not seeing the evidence that it's happening, I don't give a fuck. It's just words. I don't think he favors controversy. His name, Salty Mike, is a joke because everyone used to say that he was too salty, so he just embraced it. I don't know where we're from exactly in New Jersey. I know he was born in New Jersey. Paul, when do you think we were able to get our gear back that we lose? Would you really be able to claim my Tavaran armor so I can wear it more often? Oh, probably not until at least 4.0, would be my guess. Grumpy Eyes is way more salty. Yeah, but Actioneer, the reason why he changed his name from Twerk to Salty Mike is because as a streamer, let me explain to you why your name being Twerk isn't great for reaching out for sponsors. I don't know. See, I think I wouldn't. That's why I was not tending towards realistic, because realistic depends on who you're talking to. Someone's reality is not the same as your own. And I like to point this like this. I've said this many times, and I've had a lot of comments on this because I made a comment about how some people are far too harsh on Morphologist for his statement about how this isn't the year for Star Citizen. He's explained it many times, and I'll have to explain it again because I tend to look at it the similar way. There are different types of people who follow video games. There are people, they all fall into many different orders, but very generally, you fall into one of two camps. You're either somebody who enjoys new things for the sake of new things. So people who play a lot of early access games, alpha games, people who like to see games develop or, follow development. People like most of us, most of y'all watching right now, fall into that camp. You're the early adopters, people who want to be on the bleeding edge of a thing. And then there are people who just want to play a goddamn game. These are the people who, when they buy a game, they expect it to work and they expect to have fun and they get value out of their money. Of course, that's an overly general way of describing. People fall in any kind of points between those two camps, but generally speaking, you have those two groups. And if you fall into group one, Star Citizen getting 100 players is development. Seeing new gameplay aspects is development. But if you're in group two, that doesn't fucking matter. Oh, I can be a bounty hunter. Okay, wow, this is really basic and bullshit. There's no way I just have to kill them? I get hacks? You should fix this gameplay. It's not fun. You know, oh, I have salvage. Where's salvage? Oh, we have trading. Where's the trading? Where's the new system? Where's the things that I paid the game for? I want to be Space Han Solo. Why the fuck can't I be Space Han Solo? And neither of these groups are right or wrong, but in their own realities, they will gravitate towards their own concepts. So somebody who's in camp 2, who's like, I want to play a game that I fucking bought, is going to look at somebody who's more pessimistic at Star Citizen or more, looks at it more in terms of where the fuck is these goddamn things, and see them as realistic. Whereas somebody who is looking at it in camp 1, which is like, well, we don't want to see all of these things being developed and we like to play this early access, they'll see somebody who, you know, looks at the game as more of a work in progress or even positive about the game when every little new thing comes out that's good. They'll see those people as realistic. Neither of them are right. And it's not like one of those situations where, oh, well, somewhere in the middle is right. No one's fucking right. There's no such thing as right in this situation. It's because we don't have all the information. And even CIG probably doesn't know the right answer for any of this. But you're going to gravitate towards any of those camps. Early edge of Star Citizen was 10 years ago. I mean, that's if you like to follow a game when it's an idea on a paper. Sweet and sour pork, get in my belly. Ooh, it's nice. Oh, it sounds good. Actually, don't answer that. Would you like a position at the State Department? I'm a historian. There are plenty of people like me who work for the State Department. What's everyone's favorite system? Mine's Ellis. Mine's Magnus, just because I'm a sucker for Drake. So, isn't Space Han Solo regular Han Solo? I guess that's a good point of view. I want to be Han Solo, not Space Han Solo. I mean, Space Indiana Jones. Where's that options? You know, the State Department. The office hours are so good. I'm glad to get this one live. I'm glad you were here too. You're right, Paul. We don't have all the information on the measures, so negatively against them is, per your words, not right. Negativity. Not necessarily negativity towards them. There's nothing wrong with being negative towards the measures. It's just saying, it's like saying the measures did nothing wrong, and someone saying, yeah, here's all the list of things they did wrong. That's pretty right. You also got to remember, in my own mind, how I kind of interpret a lot of these things is I'm a historian. So one of the basic starting parts of being a historian is there's no such thing as truth. Truth is a concept. It's not real. And truth is variable depending on who's talking. What we have are facts. And how you interpret those facts is what matters. But truth doesn't exist. Period. It's not necessarily true that the winner writes the history books. Whoever survives writes the history books. That's different. Alternative facts. There are no such thing as alternative facts. There's just facts. It's just there's no such thing as truth. Truth is a concept. To use the Indiana Jones speech, if you're looking for truth, go to a philosophy class.
Hey, a tip. Ashma, super chatted $20. Just keeping doing what you're the law content. By the way, isn't there law content with history of the UEE? Idea if SIG is putting that in game? And have they approached you for librarian?
Isn't there a content with history? Yeah, there is. It's called the Arc Station, which is where the Arc star map and the star maps come into. So yeah. Are you as Hermes Conrad bureaucratic, harsh, and how BS is I? What are you talking about, Fishy? A bit like dialectical materialism. I've looked it up to see what it is. That kind of. So let me put it this way. If I'm a historian and I'm studying, and thank you for the $20, by the way, Ashman. Thank you so much. If I'm a historian and I'm looking at, say, saints of the medieval period, this was something I actually did when I was in college. You can't come at the saints of the medieval period from a perspective of God isn't real, all of this is bullshit and made up. Because that doesn't actually tell you anything about history. What matters in history is that these people believed these saints were real. And they acted politically, economically, socially, and culturally on that belief. So what's actually true doesn't matter. What matters is what happened and how that affected the people around them. Does that make sense? So that's from my perspective. Individuals can have their own truths. You can have your own morality. You can have those own things. But when you're looking at facts, facts are the things that you need to use in order to better understand something. But without those facts, you don't have the ability to understand it. You meant no BS? Okay. Yeah, material conditions are what they are. The perspective or judgment of it doesn't matter. The judgment matters of the time period. What the people thought happened and their own judgments matter, but you know. Thank you for that $5 ghost. You're spending money on. How much for you to get old man Hurston to say ooh next time you have him on stream? I will do it. I will do it for free.
GH05T super chatted $5. How much for you to get old man Hurston to say UWU next time you have him on stream?
I'll do it for free. I'll do it for free. I'm a man of science, but my facts can change depending on a price tag. That's also true. That happens a lot in science too. It's one of those things that drives me up the wall whenever I hear a scientist get on their soapbox and be like, science is empirical and unshaking. It's like, fuck you, it is. Changes all the time. What matters is what's the scientific consensus, and the scientific consensus is what everyone agrees on. It still has to have some basis in truth or like the reality of whatever is being studied, because there's processes in place. But we didn't always have scientific consensus on relativity, on lots of different aspects, which were when they were initially pitched, were not seen as legitimate until they could prove it. That didn't necessarily mean that Einstein was thrown out of a fucking window when he had his ideas, but like the common refrain is Galileo was locked up by the church. The answer was he was locked up by the church by being an idiot. Not because of his ideas, but because of his political ramifications of his ideas. He was challenging the church doctrine in a time period when challenging the church doctrine meant you went to jail or you were killed, because it was in the middle of the Reformation, which people don't understand that context. It would be like going to Nazi Germany and challenging Nazi Germany's perspective. Even if you're right, you're in Nazi Germany, dude. You should know better than try to do this. Get the fuck out of there and then try doing that. But you know. The science is settled.
It can be settled, but it also changes. I wonder if the consensus becomes reality. I am not a philosopher. I could not tell you that. Bazinga. Thank you so much for that $20 there, Red.
Hey, a tip.
Red super chatted $19.99. Bazinga.
All of that is to say that for you to understand my perspective on Star Citizen and Star Citizen development, Mike is not wrong in his assessments of Star Citizen. But Mike will also tell you he doesn't fucking know anything about Star Citizen because I don't know anything about Star Citizen. In the end, none of us are Chris Roberts. None of us are developers or management, and not even the developers know everything about there is to know about the game. And in some cases, they know everything and they still don't know if certain things will work or not, or how it will work. So, and they can't tell you exactly the time period because anything can happen. You don't get to spend $20 just to say Bazinga. You can say Bazinga all you want to. He spent $20 and said Bazinga. Yeah, I mean, and that's part of game development. You don't know if a game is fun until you've built it, which is a weird way of thinking it, but there are more games that have been developed than have been released. I think Heisenberg was an error in 1934 and Drac was correct in 1928, just one of many assumptions in the history of science that has never been revisited since. I don't know those things, though. Why does CIG need such a large mocap studio? Probably because they want to do large-scale mocap sessions. The issue... All right. I'm also a theater kid because I got my minor in theater. That studio is about average for a box theater. For anybody who's ever been to a theater, you probably like a play, like a place with like a stage and all kind of stuff. You probably only have seen probably about a third, maybe half of the actual theater. If you look up in those theaters, you'll see a lot of black because it's intentionally unlit, so you don't see the people running around up there managing the lights. But those are often far and away much taller than you realize. That is huge in terms of its height. And the reason why is because of lighting. Light casts differently depending on where you are in a different location. And often these larger spotlights need a lot of way to cast for larger throw. I think it's throws, Rowan. I wasn't a lighting guy. So if you look at most theaters, you'll actually see this huge box which like rises out of a theater, which is why some theaters are actually built into the ground because you could then you don't have to build as high. So that's why you kind of go down into some theaters, like you walk in and you go down because they want to they don't have to build up. But it's not just lights; it's a bunch of other technical stuff that's up there that you don't see because it's out of your light because no one looks up. Very, very rarely do you look up. My son is a drama/history major. Hey, we share that. A black box in the UK is in this heat. Yeah. So effectively, the reason why they build up, I don't know exactly, but I theorize. I have a theory that it has a lot to do with lighting. And why does lighting matter? I don't know, just to see shit. But if you notice, most professional mocap studios look like that. And let me pull up. Pull up some images of. So this is Bones Studio, which is actually pretty famous, I think. What's with these? This one. It's a little bit. It's like a warehouse. It's slightly like that's obviously a. Oh wait, I'm not even showing you. That's obviously like a garage door of some kind, and so this looks more like a warehouse. You look at some of these other ones. Here's like log masses. You can see it's about the size of a large room. It's a little bit bigger. Studio 7. OptiTrack, you can see like it's pretty big and pretty expansive. There you go. Here's like, see, this is about the same size as CIG Studio. You see how you can get a lot of people on the stage and you can get a lot of other things. Just the whole lighting rigs up here. Because you also don't want to have the lighting rigs in the face of those actors, I think is another way of putting it. So, but you can still see stuff. So. And I don't know enough about mocap studios to know if those are also cameras. They might be. And that may be another reason, is that you want to have a lot of space where you can get the cameras where they're not overlapping each other. That's the other thing, is they can rent them out if they're not using it. They also have a ton of headroom so they can fly set pieces and other rigging. That's true as well. That was the original purpose for them, I believe, was not just lighting, but it was for a lot of different set pieces or other aspects of the stage. Again, I was not a lighting person. I didn't work in that rigging a lot. So, but I do know that they're huge. Like most theaters are much taller than people realize. Henry Cavill can't fit in a small space. Yeah. It's high for capturing all kinds of motions like climbing and props and ladders. I can imagine that too, yeah. If you can build big, you want to build big because you never know what you're going to use in studios like that. In my college, my university, we had a black box theater, and that's one of the reasons why we had a black box theater, is because we could build high up, and then we could use the entire floor for flats and props, and we could build 2 stories high in those props and still get it. And while it doesn't seem like, oh, well, you don't really need a 2-story high, flat prop, like a faux, like front for a building, but you might for reference purposes. Because then you can like mat that on later and you can kind of see that, you can use that for perspective and we go, okay, this is how tall the person is. That's how big that thing is. You can see it a little bit better and it makes it a little bit easier. Land animations, we're going back to the roadmap, boys. See, as you'll have to lure Cavill back with Warhammer minis. Are they redoing Squadron 42 mocapping, or are they future-proofing? They've been going back to the mocap studios to capture new animations almost monthly. But it's a process. They have to rent it ahead of time. It's a demanding, a mocap, especially if you're getting larger studios, you need that kind of stuff. So, I was into photography, and cameras tend to stand out to me. Did you see? I didn't see you say that. If you knew what they to look for in the video, there were already a lot of cameras on the framework. Okay, so yeah, so those cameras are already there. Yeah, and from what that video looked like, those were not workers but employees. They weren't. Those people weren't. Didn't seem like they were construction workers. They were either professional electricians, or maybe installers, or they were CIG's mocap team that were installing that. Yeah, calibration too. It's a lot harder to calibrate with those sorts of technologies as well. Yeah, no lighting rigs and faces. They're supposed to light them, not perform laser eye surgery. Yeah. Actually, the reason why they're doing this is so they can is this mocap, so they can have a Warhammer 40K tabletop game on that giant stage, but with the actors displayed as the minis. Yes. So I'll give you a hint. I've talked to several CIG employees in the past who have told me that they have stood in for actors for other scenes. to do mocap for them because they were the right size. Just like you can think of this as kind of like pickup shots or B-roll, not B-roll, but like second unit for movies or television. You don't always have the actor on stage, but you may need to have a reverse shot where you have, one actor's talking to another, but you need to have somebody there to fill in the role of that actor who's not there. So you use a stunt double or you use a secondary actor. But with video games, you don't need the actual actor. You don't need Mark Hamill to come back for pickups because you can just use the same, just to correct an animation error. You can just use somebody who's about the same size and shape of Mark Hamill to stand in and do some animations or do some movements so they can copy the animations. And they've talked about that a lot with Squadron 42, where they've gone back and done reshoots with those studios. And this is actually, like I said before, this is a good thing because it means it should limit the amount of time lag between animations and actually producing it. Chris is going to accidentally himself into a game studio? You mean a publisher? Chris is going to accidentally himself into a publisher because that's what he's already doing. What ships will be on sale for any in ship versus ship event? It's hard to tell. My guess is mostly what we'll see is ships that are ships that are already on the 16, the ships that will make it to the final ship showdown. So CIG will own 2 mocap studios after this one is being built in Manchester. Manchester's finished. No, the Manchester, that is the Manchester one. The one that Jared was in, that's the Manchester mocap studio. And if I remember correctly, talking with people at CIG, the other studio is not a mocap studio. It's a television studio. It's like a smaller for video production. So instead of Jared working out of basically a garage, Jared will be working out of an actual small video studio, which is, I believe, attached to the mocap studio. Yeah, it's soundstage, I guess. From what I've heard, is it's not as big as the mocap studio. It's a much smaller space, but it's a professional space with professional everything. So, I have met Chris Roberts twice, and I haven't bothered talking with him because the man is very busy, and everyone wants to talk with him. And if Chris, you're watching, this isn't a slight on you. I'm not interested in talking to you. Not because I'm not interested in talking to you. I'd love to talk to you about certain things when you're not busy, but I'm more interested in talking to Dave Haddock or to Tony Z or to Todd Pappy or to any of the managers or the people in those studios, because they can tell me a lot more of the actual real things that are going on in those studios versus Chris, who sometimes gets it third-hand information. Chris is a great guy to understand about the overall scope and idea of Star Citizen, which we already know because we've been following the game for a long time. This game has been out of Chris's hands, physically out of his hands, in terms of like him not touching everything for years now. This is much more of he's built a studio and he has to let his leaders and his managers do the job that they've been hired to do. And those people are the people who are interested to me because they're the people who are dealing with the stuff on a daily basis. It's like the difference between talking to a director versus talking to the stage crew. A director will give you the highlights, the ideas they're going for. The stage crew will tell you how they set up that shot, how they lit that shot. Who was holding the boom mic will tell you about funny things that happen, those sorts of things. Yeah, Chris, you take that olive branch and shove it. It's not, like I said, if Chris doesn't watch my show, I'm pretty sure he doesn't. But if he did, it's not a slight on Chris. It's just he's in a completely different sphere of influence. When will they release this year's IAE anniversary sales schedule? Probably after CitizenCon, which is not until October. Sound Change is pro level and can get any size, usually between 2,500 and over 2,500 square feet. Good to know. I don't know the terminology for video production studios because I didn't really interact with those. So, it's Paul Shelley with a chair. Oh my God. For next year, do you think of Gladiator Best in Show? It's horrifically underrated, but honestly quite good. I mean, honestly, I hope that by next year they have fixed the Best in Show so that we almost are always guaranteed a vehicle, small ship, medium ship, and large ship. Because that's the real reason why I've been memeing the shit out of these ships, is more to do with the fact that I want everyone to have a chance to get a skin. And if it's always the ships that are the best in game, the best in game ships will always win. Like the Carrack would be winning every single year. The Cutlass would win every single year. It's not fucking fun. You know, the Aurora will never win. The Arrow or the Hornet or any of those ships will never win because they're not fun. They are not fun. They're not as OP as those other ships. You know, the 600i will never win. The Freelancer will never win. The Vanguard will never win. The Reclaimer will never win. But if you break them up into their own categories, you know, the PTV will never win, but hopefully it will this year. But the Tonk, the Nova Tonk will never win. But if it was just the Nova Tonk versus the Spartan, yeah, I'd fucking vote for a Tonk over a Spartan. There's still more of a chance. You know, a dedicated team of Freelancer fans would beat a Cutlass and a Vanguard, but would never beat a Carrack if they had to go one-on-one. Isn't CIG doing something so the Argo MPUVs can't win again? I don't know if they have, but I'm not even bothering with that. Not everyone wants to pay the cost to acquire bigger and more expensive ships either. That's another point. You want to give an option for everyone at every price point to be able to get in on the bottom line for this celebration. You know, if people really jazzed about what CIG is doing, want to help out, and they want to get swept up into the emotion and the rah, then if you have a $50 ship that's for sale, that's still expensive, but if you bought a $45 pack, you know, upgrading to that $50 ship, probably $5. You know, upgrade and you get yourself a free skin plus a new ship. Pretty cool. Maybe that's the impetus for you to pull that trigger and buy that ship. Now CIG is $5 more rich, whereas that person is never fucking buying a Carrack, but they will buy that $5 upgrade. There's also it's popular, so I wanted to see it fail sentiment, which is unfair. To a degree. My point of view with the Carrack last year was that the Carrack won last year, or the year before that, I should say, and I was just like, let the Argo win. And the fact that we memed the Argo to win was partially because Red Lear had been trying to get that to win forever, and partially because, for me, it was twofold. One, it's a good ship. It will show its value in the future because of it's a multi-tool. It's a Swiss Army knife. And B, it's a small ship that everyone can afford. Well, not everyone, but most people can afford. $20, get yourself a neat little ship and a skin. And it worked. People liked it. I still say that the Argo MPUV is one of the better ships in game that you have not realized yet.
I'd love to see my Nomad get in the Final Four, but there's no way in hell it's happening with the current system. Exactly. But the most important reason is the memes. You got to use the memes to win because CIG hates memes, and memes are the only way you win in elections these years. If they did brackets, I mean, if I were CIG, I would increase the brackets from 4 for 4 victors, with the ultimate victory, to being 6 and 6 or more. So you'd have vehicles, starter ships, small ships, medium ships, large ships, and capital ships. And each of those, if they won those brackets, they would all win. They'd all get into the finals, and all 6 of those ships would get a skin and whatever other perks. Then you would do the finals, and the finals would be all of those ships, those vehicles and ships pairing off against each other to see who would win. And you would give, say, the larger ships a bye, or maybe even give the smaller ships a bye so they have a chance to get into the top 4. And whoever wins that will win, gets into the top 4. Those top 4 get additional perks, and then whoever is the final winner, finalists, and then whoever's the finalist gets this as well. But that's a little bit more convoluted. At the very least, having 4 brackets of very similar ships instead of scattered across the map would be a better system. What do you think the next step in the story of the belligerent duck is? Oh. So they've been fucked over by the UEE. Some advocacy agent is working to screw them over, but is using them as a patsy. And they captured Maz and for some reason, and Alex managed to bust him out. I think the next story is to unravel who stabbed them in the back. Who's responsible for that? So he becomes more belligerent. Belligerent Duck is the name of a MSR that's owned by Alex Dugan and Maz Hulan, who are a human smuggler and a Bennu smuggler. Outlaws, not really smugglers. They do smuggling, but they do other things as well. They break and enter. It's just going to be a crowded bracket next year? Yeah, very, very much so. So, I'll give you a very brief rundown of the story. Go read the stories of the Belligerent Duck. I believe it's On the Run is the name of it. But if you Google Belligerent Duck Star Citizen, it should pull up some information. When the MSR was originally sold, they ran 2 stories talking about the story of the Belligerent Duck. And the Belligerent Duck was captained by a woman named Alexandria Dugan, and her co-pilot was a Bennu named Maz Hulan. Now, Maz is a hacker. He is an engineer and a hacker, and Alex is a pilot. And they were hired by a mysterious man who had just recently had facial reconstruction surgery to completely look like someone different, which is common in the UE. It's you can do it at a drop of a hat. Not expensive either. Who was obviously very, very deep. That person hired them to break into the Bering Laser Labs, which would be the equivalent of breaking into like the Lawrence Livermore Labs or in America, or like CERN. Breaking into CERN and stealing information from there. So they managed to sneak in because they're experts at sneaking into places. They actually have a reputation of breaking into Quarterdeck, which is the most secure prison in the UAE, to smuggle in and out stuff. They are very good at their jobs. And they snuck into the Bering Laser Labs and stole information. But the information they stole wasn't active. It was an old, non-used file. If I remember correctly, it was effectively a project that doesn't exist or did exist and was a failure.
And the reason why they know that is because Maz is a hacker, and he said this doesn't smell right at all. This doesn't feel right at all. But then they got rumbled, and so they had to run. And the next part of the story was actually players, because during the whole event, players could go through the Arc star map and find actual like locations of the belligerent duck, and to try to catch them and report that information to the UEE. When you did, it would update the story, and at the end, they wrote another story, a kind of a conclusion story of them managing to escape the UEE's clutches and go to the one of the flotillas, the Banu flotillas, to get the information looked at by a Banu Suli that Maz used to work for, used to be part of, and they couldn't find anything of use, and they found nothing to sell. Almost got Alex enslaved, but she was smart enough to be like, you didn't read the contract, did you? I didn't say it was anything was useful on there. I said you could take anything that was useful on there. You accepted those terms. And the SO Suli was like, you got me. That was the terms. I concede. You sly bitch. And they still trying to figure out why the hell they felt like they were set up. Like they were set up for some reason. When they got back onto the ship, their original employer was already on the ship waiting for them and was like, hey, by the way, you're busted. And so the story was like Alex and Maz going, we know you rumbled us, but why? And the guy's like, I'm not telling you. And when things got bad, they managed to like wrestle him, get rid of him, and ended up killing him. Or I think he ended up killing himself rather than talk, which was a spook. Like he's like a UE advocacy or naval intelligence of some kind. And they escaped. And then the next story is the reunion story, where we meet them again, where Alex has captured her former crewmate, a former friend who used to roll with her. I forgot her name, but and that's that video that they did for the MSR. And they captured Maz. She has Maz in a stasis chamber, which looks like a stasis chamber that is captured. It's like a prison transport or like a bounty hunter, but it's got a special encryption on it. And that's the whole purpose of that she's turning in her old friend to get the encryptions that you can use to unlock the stasis capsule that has Maz in it. But then at the end, she gets what she wants and then turns on the guy she's trying to deal with, and they have to run out from getting shot at. And it turns out that her old partner backstabbed her and sold her out to another criminal, another gangster who wanted revenge. But because Alex had helped her old partner out, she decides to flip on them. She didn't know it was, it's like, I didn't know that you were going to help me out, so I'm gonna help you out now. And then they kind of escaped. So there's definitely something going on. It was a targeting program, yeah, but it was like a targeting program that wasn't working. Like it wasn't even functioning. Yeah, but the reason why it's called the belligerent duck was because it was named some really pretentious thing, and Alex won it in a bet. If you can't tell, Alex Dugan is Star Citizen's version of Han Solo, and it's not even fucking subtle. So when she won it in a bet, and I believe even in a game of cards, she renamed it just to piss him off. Renamed it the belligerent duck, as a means of just as a to the guy who used to own it. Call this place the Spoiler Pub. That information has been out for years. All right. If we're going to be spoiling here, I'll spoil an equally old thing. Bruce Willis is dead at the end of Sixth Sense. Sorry, I spoiled the 20-year-old movie for you. And also she uses the MSR. Yeah, I said MSR. I don't remember. I think I said MSR. That's the name of the ship. Yeah.
If it's new to me, it's a spoiler. Luke Skywalker is Darth Vader's son. Yeah. Snape kills Dumbledore. I mean, you want me to continue? No. Hey, Slyfi, thank you for gifting all those subs, by the way. And you're sub for 40 months. Damn, son. Y'all rock. There we go. References to the aluminum mallard from Space Quest? Possibly. So many spoilers, so little time. Ice Cube survives an anaconda. Sixth Sense is titled He's the Ghost in the Chinese version. Did you name it for them? Yes. There are snakes on a plane. You literally bought the Sixth Sense last week. You're welcome. I've spoiled the whole game, the whole movie for you. It's a good movie nonetheless. Watching it, knowing that's the case, is actually fairly interesting. Even if you, because it's one of those movies where you watch it first, not knowing the twist, and once you figure out what the twist is, you go, oh shit, and you go back and watch it again, and then you see all of the points that are kind of obvious. So, all hogs do in fact go to heaven. Do you see the Easter egg on the UI update, like the size 7 tachyon, kingship tachyon? I didn't see that. No. All right, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go get some more water. And then when I come back, I will start the Squad 42 review because we've been going for 2 hours. So Duck Dauber's Major, it's a combination of many different references, but it's the Millennium Falcon. It's the same kind of naming structure and everything. Did I see the mannequin? I did. One of the Star Citizen concept artists did a fake concept with a mannequin. That's what you're asking about there. People like Sixth Sense with dog on the director. It's not that M. Night Shyamalan's not a bad director. It's that M. Night Shyamalan did not evolve as a director. He kept the same pattern as he did with the Sixth Sense and didn't change the formula up. And when people said, dude, change the formula up, he instead of changing the formula up, he became an egotistical maniac. And like Lady in the Water is just a giant jerk-off session about how good he is. I like Sixth Sense, but I actually like Signs better. And a lot of people didn't, but I like it because it was an it still had a twist in it, but the twist wasn't the actual, point of the film. The twist added to the themes of the film, which were very, very well written. It was very well done and very well acted. Joaquin Phoenix, I want to say Mel Brooks, that was the wrong one. Mel Gibson, the kids were pretty good actors. It's a fairly well done. I think it's my favorite Shyamalan movie. Everyone says Sixth Sense is good, but I like Sixth Sense better. I feel like his best films are Sixth Sense, not Sixth Sense, Signs, Sixth Sense, The Village. The Village is like the Sixth Sense, but worse. And then it goes downhill from there. I would say, I would say Signs, Sixth Sense, Split, which was another good one because he kind of tried to change up his own
formula, then village, then avatar, and then Lady in the Water. I really didn't like Lady in the Water. All right, be right back.
Drugs. Two words. Distress bacon. Two words. Distress bacon. Drugs. Two words. Distress bacon. Two words.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Drugs.
I'm Fly. I'm Pilot.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession. Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Drugs. Drugs. Drugs.
I'm just an old-fashioned cowboy.
Drugs. 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 Drugs.
Everybody and his dog calls himself an outlaw.
Distress bacon. Two words. Distress bacon.
Weapons free, y'all.
Drugs.
Cajitas wares. Eat well
good. Distress bacon. Distress bacon. Drugs. Distress bacon. Drugs. Distress bacon. Drugs.
We're back. Stop it. Stop it, chat. You're abusing it. Turn it all off. So it's become a tradition, for those of you who don't know, that whenever I leave during office hours, that I have this here, I can't give you more points. It's okay. I can't give you coins back. I literally can't issue coins. Only Twitch can. They're like noises that, it's a system that's called Trigger Fire, where you can connect various sound effects and videos and other things to be purchased through Twitch currency, which is this currency you get for watching streamers on Twitch. And so they just set those noises up, those little sound, I used to call them sound emotes. These little sound emotes, these little clips. People just do that now. Yeah, send it to Ticket Switch. All right. So, they do hear it on YouTube. They hear it everywhere. All right. So, for those of you who have never seen this before, this is where I do capsule. This is where I'm going to do a capsule. So I'm going to talk at the camera. I will be reading off the monthly report, and I will very rarely refer to chat. So if you have questions, save it till I'm finished. You make it down, write it down somewhere, and you can do that. So thank you, Kasumi, for that that 6 months of Twitch Prime as well. Let's give me some more of that. Man who has wares, if you have coin. Yeah. Why are they not called sobriety coins? Because the point of beers is that beer is a currency. All right. So, without further ado, I'm going to start up the recording, and we're going to get started with Squadron 42's July month report. Hello and welcome to a capsule. That's right, office hours capsule. Apparently some people haven't been hearing me say this enough, so I'll say this again. This is a small section of my office hours live stream, which if you're watching this after the fact, I'll put a link up here if you want to watch the whole thing. That is a live stream I do every Thursday where I sit through and I react to other videos, but mostly we just look at the news, the updates, and the lore of Star Citizen and talk a little bit about all of that kind of stuff. So join us live on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern to hang out and talk. And if you want to watch the whole thing, including the context, I take questions from the chat, everything, it'll be live on YouTube after the fact. youtube.com/TheAstroPubLive. If you're watching this after the fact, hit that subscribe button, the bell icon. Make sure that you like the video as well. If you want to help spread it around, it helps out growing the channel as well. So without further ado, let's take a look at the Squadron 42 July monthly report. But before that, actually, I do need to go a little bit more because this is not a summary. We looked down at the list. This is not a summary. You'll probably notice this is a lot longer than a few minutes. The reason why that is because it's not that summaries are bad. Summaries are fine. But I personally believe that if you want to be the most informed about anything, especially video games, you need to be able to read the sources yourself. So I'll have the source linked below for those of you who'd like to have the source for all of the information regarding what I'm talking about. So you can read along if you like to. But I also recognize that some people don't have time to read things, so they need someone to read it to them. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm going to read you exactly what's on there, word for word. I will interject with my own references or context or other things that, even questions or suppositions that I'll have along the way. But I don't know everything. I'm just reading off using the best skill that I have, the best ability that I have for interpretation of some of this stuff. So grab yourself something to drink, get something to eat, put your headphones in, start up that latest work you got to do, and let me go through this Squadron 42 month report for the month of July 2022. All right. I'm not going to go through the beginning because this is all the same thing every time. All right. AI content. Last month, AI content dedicated time to bug fixing existing features. We identified the top 20 usables that AI interact with and set out to fix as many of the issues as possible in 2 weeks. The issues were triaged and arranged into 3 categories: bugs that the AI designers could solve, bugs that the AI animators could solve, and code issues not solvable by AI content. By the end, approximately 50 issues had been solved before the team returned to feature work. July's feature work included supporting the weapons vendor, setting up, creating weapon pickup and animations, place animations, progressing with the locomotion polish mentioned in last month, and retargeting overlay animations to the female skeleton. This is important if you watch the latest ISC. I'm going to actually increase the scale of this as well because it looks like it's a little small. If you watch the latest ISC, you'll know that Jared was doing the ISC from the mocap studio. So a lot of the animation, especially with a lot of the AI work, comes down to mocap, the mocap studio, and the availability of that studio and those actors to mocap scenes that they need to kind of pick they need to do pickup work for. And smoothing out animations can help if you have more references or more data tracks. Or more data points you can use for this. That might increase or speed up some of this development as well. Once it gets fully online, which could take months. Though I think they said they want to try to get it all operational by mid-August, so we'll see. The AI designers continued implementing the dynamic conversations feature, expanding it to the eat and drink behavior. Now NPCs have conversations between bites and drinks. We're pleased with the result as it makes the AI feel less individual and more connected with other NPCs. AI contact team. AI engineers will also seek out colleagues at wall panels and work zones, example, broken pipes, to start conversations. They're currently working on implementing chatter for AI in bunk beds and arcade machines too. Very important. I'm going to say this whenever we go over these things. Squadron 42, in fact, I'll do this. Squadron 42 itself is broken up into technically 3 stages that I tend to lump it into 2. CIG categorizes it in 3 stages. You have space combat or space action, foot combat or foot action, where you're on like FPS, and social. Those are the 3 parts of the game. So some of the game, at least a third of the game, is spent walking around ships in a social manner, talking with other people, hearing the banter back and forth, standing in the chow line, preparing your ship, outfitting your ship, outfitting your person, interacting with other crew members, and so on and so forth. 1/3 of your time is going to be flying around, or about 1/3 of your time to be flying around doing space missions. Sometimes that's combat, sometimes it's not. Depends on how you handle things. And the last bit is going to be FPS missions. Now, I say 1/3 because that's how CIG breaks it down. There may be more social missions than there are combat missions, or vice versa. It really depends on how CIG balances it, but generally speaking, that's what we're looking at. So you keep that in mind when I continue to talk about some of this stuff, because a lot of this stuff will be referencing things like AI talking at a vending machine. Why is that important? Because that's part of the social aspect of the game. And that's the big key. And a lot of that stuff will get ported over to Star Citizen eventually, but that stuff is important for Squadron to add a little bit more of that immersion. You can think of a part of Squadron 42 as effectively The Sims in that kind of level of not necessarily that detail, but that kind of context for what you're looking around for. All right, let's look at AI features. AI features. For human combat, AI features continue to work on tactic selection, including implementing a more data-driven approach to setting up the scoring factors in DataForge. This will allow the designers to quickly tweak values to produce the best possible range of combat behaviors for the situation, including with multiple combatants with different setups and ranges. This solution extends the function selection in Subsumption to allow the game code to register a custom probability calculator, which will provide benefits in general, not just for combat behaviors. So if I'm reading this right, they're adding more details to AI to make them more unique. They're giving them probability factors for how they would approach something. So, for instance, if an AI is facing multiple combatants, it will make a calculation of saying, should I back up and get to cover, or should I throw a grenade, or should I hunker into cover, or should I just run out, or should I just drop my gun and run away? That's what it seems like they're adding to that functionality. This custom probability factor, which will provide benefits in general, not just for combat behaviors. So, yeah. They also began aligning the existing perception systems to a new design where the perception meter rises depending on different stimuli, hearing footsteps or gunfire, seeing a target, etc., and falls over time. Once different threshold levels on the meter are hit, they trigger different alertness levels that will determine specific reaction animations and behaviors. For example, at the lowest level, the AI will react by simply turning their head towards the stimulus. At the middle level, they will investigate the stimulus, and at the highest level, they will enter combat. Stimuli can also impact the meter in different ways based on the conditions of the target, including whether they're crouched or standing and in the location's lighting. This is something they've been working on fairly in depth. I think they finished allowing for the AI to be able to hear selectively. They showed off a thing about a year or two ago where they got the AI to, if you're like walking outside a doorway, an AI won't hear you walking outside the doorway or see you walking outside the doorway, so they won't just immediately bust through the door and try to kill you. So now the key is to set up different stages upon which they're doing that. So work also started on the investigation behavior, with the devs implementing a system to allow NPCs to determine potential enemy hiding spots, check them, and keep track of which ones the ones they've seen. The next stage is for NPCs to share information so they can cover a level together. Very cool. For more stealth-based approach. They're also working to improve consistency of cover selection using automatic cover generation system. They also are planning to improve the quality of cover and provide more information to the AI so that less decision-making has to be made at runtime. They've also blocked out animations for human AI mantling and vaulting to give NPCs more locomotion options when moving around the environment. Cleanup and timing tasks were also completed for the Spec Ops animation sets. For the Van Tool, the team blocked out several animations, including piloting and some location-specific animations, to get the Van Duel from their spawn locations, often off the navigation mesh, on into the level. All right, cool. All right, AI tech. During July, AI tech focused on extending the functionalities required to traverse navigation islands using special action. This included implementing new adapters for navigation links to include mantling, jumping down, and vaulting. The basic idea is that using all the existing markup, we want to allow NPCs to perform similar actions to the player in the environment. For example, we adjusted the ledge objects to include specifications that evaluate the nav mesh and link multiple islands correctly. Allows the AI to be more natural, to do everything that the players can do. They also continued R&D on seamless transitions into usables. This time they implemented a cleaner and more reliable system for sharp turn animations, giving more natural movement to NPCs following paths around corners. This helps NPCs feel heavier and show weight balancing when moving over sharp corners. That's part of the whole tightening up, making it a little bit more natural when you move around. Progress was also made on the locomotion refactor. Last month, the team began improving how AI actors process movement, which will allow them to decouple movement from requests from what processes it. This is an important change to better support multiple path followers used in different contexts. For example, actors, creatures, or NPCs driving a vehicle or pushing a trolley. They're currently preparing to integrate into Squadron 42 branch and verify that everything works as expected. It's important change to better support multiple path followers used in different contexts. Okay, so I think what they're saying is if a NPC is walking around, they will use different animations and locomotions than if that NPC is pushing a cart or in a vehicle. And so they're trying to decouple movement requests from what's processed it. So they're removing I think that's the whole removing the NPC's movement from the DGS to a backend service. So you don't have to, the availability of that movement won't be dependent on the services. So for the subsumption editor within the Sandbox tool, AI Tech implemented new functionality and stabilized the tool to finally open up the usage to all the designers. A better AI debug UI using IMGUI is currently being implemented to allow the devs to select and inspect NPC behaviors. The tool can split the NPCs present in each zone, select multiple NPCs and inspect their properties. Okay. Progress was also made on ship reinforcements for Alpha 3.17.1. The team made the feature more robust by adding better monitoring of the disembarking process from the pilot's perspective. They also added an abort phase for the dropship in case the drop location is occupied, and the pilot can now monitor the presence of a player inside the cargo area. They also fixed several bugs relating to slow reaction time and desynced teleports. These issues are mostly caused by a low server frame rate, but the devs optimized the code and implemented tweaks to allow the code to better handle some of those situations. That's, I think, copy-paste directly from the Star Citizen stuff. So, AI vehicles. In July, the AI vehicle team finished enabling AI to use master modes. AI is now fully integrated with the ability to swap master modes when required by the operator mode they want to use. The designers will also soon be able to cycle modes to give AI access to higher SCM speeds when designing behaviors. Bug fixes were also made throughout the month, including an issue with the Fly-2 not computing an efficient path and dive attacks ignoring driverless spaceships. Yeah. Makes AI can use more operator modes, and they get some bugs. All right. Last month, the animation team further developed the zero-G movement and navigation, adjusting the feel to give a better overall experience. They also worked on the new SMG, additional weapons for the Master at Arms, ladder interactions, female console use, and locomotion, sharp turns and jukes. The new Mobiglass interactions were developed to give more realistic feel to characters, and progress was made on the Van Duel, this time searching vents and climbing. Oh. On the facial side, improvements to the facial animations of the named cast members continued. Very cool. Not the best interactions, okay. Art characters. The character team spent June focusing on the remaining Navy faction outfits, I think they meant July, and progressed with the Screaming Galson's armor. They're currently preparing to create the Shubin mining outfits and work with tech animation on head scans for various characters. Okay, nice. Art weapons. Weapon art started this month bug fixing, closing out around half of their backlog of bugs alongside cleanup work. Progress was then made on Volt, shotgun, pistol, assault rifle, and sniper rifle. Animation work progressed on the Volt weapons too. The first pass animations and reviews of the new melee metrics were completed. Work also began on some Squadron 42 faction-specific weapons, beginning with an SMG and shotgun. The military multi-tool had its white box updated with new screen positions to ensure UI work for the intended gameplay too. Okay, that's interesting. SMG and a shotgun for Squad 42 only. And a multi-tool for military only. Huh. Engine. All right. I am not a tech priest. I am not a Starfleet engineer. I am not a floating ball of goo that the Forerunners created to disassemble and reassemble things. I cannot turn rocks into replicators. And I do not know the echoes of the machine spirit. I am simply a teacher. And I do not know the engine code of Star Citizen. So I'm going to read this because it's important to read through it. But as I always say, let me know in the comments below if you understand what I'm saying and can translate it for me, at least a little bit. I think a lot of people would take to heart any of this improvements. Generally speaking, engine is almost always a copy paste from the Star Citizen Squadron, Star Citizen monthly report because they're the same engine, same games practically. And I can note, generally speaking, before we get started, that it's mostly optimizations and some improvements to Gen 12, but there are some other things in there as well. All right, let's get started. Engine. In July, the physics team made several optimizations to the code. Ray/box overlaps checks were implemented in ISPC, and are now also used in Ray World intersections, RWI, to quickly skip entry parts if there is no overlap of a ray and an entity's local bounds. Further optimizations include using a box pruner to process vehicle wheels and all their possible colliders and their parts more quickly, as well as SSE and AVX2 optimizations in the code that searches parts of a physical entity. Additionally, support for successive pulley attachments to rope entities was added, and the spatial configuration of interior grid types was changed to use more layers of internal nodes that are smaller in dimension. This, for instance, helped in Port Olisar, where a lot of time was spent maintaining thunk lists, which is completely removed by this change. A couple things we can pull from that. Optimizations, and more support for ropes and pulleys. I've said for many time that the rope system seems to be in place, and it seems people say, oh, for climbing or other things. I think it's for rope puzzles for Squadron. I think that's its original purpose. I think CIG will find a way of using rope eventually for something else, but I think it's originally for Squadron is what it's being developed for. And this also mentions Port Olisar, because Port Olisar, I think, this is them trying to keep Port Olisar around as much as possible because they don't want to get rid of it. So
And for those not wondering, why is Port All-Star in Squadron 42 report? Because the engine is just a copy-paste. Just a copy-paste of everything from Star Citizen. It goes into the Squadron 42. I don't think there's anything that is engine-related that is specifically Squadron 42. And a lot of this stuff is actually copy-pasted. A lot of this stuff is stuff that's already in in Star Citizen's monthly report, but they add additional stuff if there's Squadron information. So, all right. On the renderer, the Gen 12 transitions continued. For example, Gen 12 Scaleform UI rendering was enabled by default. Support for MIP map generation passes was added, and material overrides for render nodes are now supported, including the multi-materials. The depth prepass submission is now skipped if motion vectors are rendered. Thread synchronization code is pipeline state object, PSO, cache refreshing, as well as the shader system was improved. And unnecessary stencil tests for the shadow map stage were removed. The render loading thread was replaced by a video rendering thread, which is needed for the sole purpose of rendering UI while the game is loading. Lastly, a bug that was crashing the video driver was fixed, and the entire render code was changed to successfully compile via include what you use, IWYU. Various issues in the form of buffer overruns in low-level VFX render code were also fixed. So moving things to the UI to Gen 12 and a bunch of other things to help fix with the UI issues. Gen 12 ports of atmospheric and volumetric cloud rendering continued to look up table generation for atmosphere as well as volumetric cloud pre-processing steps were successfully moved over to the execute through the new APIs. The rendering of legacy spherical clouds was moved to Gen 12.2 and can now also render as part of the deferred pipelines forward stage, which will be enabled soon. This recent progress also resulted in various suggestions, some of which have already been implemented to refine the Gen 12 APIs for special cases, so they can be ported straightforwardly and integrate better. Lastly, work on porting the remaining passes for atmospheric and volumetric clouds will commence in August. I don't remember that being in Star Citizen stuff, then it might be. That's a good sign. It means that that's Gen 12 being worked on for its interaction with API, with other stuff, so. On the core engine, entity lifetime code was adjusted for the new needs of server meshing, with the goal of it being easier to use, as well as creating a more refined feeling of persistence. Again, this is a little bit different, a little trickier. For those who go, well, yeah, this is a copy paste from Star Citizen. That's why they have server meshing. Squadron 42 uses server meshing. I am not kidding. It uses server meshing. No, Squadron 42 is not an always online game. The way that it functions, as last we heard, is that Squadron 42 uses the same architecture as Star Citizen. Meaning, when you start up a game of Squadron 42, your computer will create a server on your computer, and then you will populate that server with your client on that computer. So it's effectively running two instances of the game on your computer, which, again, sounds really resource intensive, which is why they're doing server meshing, so that they can break up those sections into smaller servers, so you don't have to have a lot of entities in those regions. So this isn't unique to Star Citizen. Other games do that as well. Not to the level that Squad 42 is doing, but it's not an unheard way of cheating the system, especially in a single player game. I mean, it's mostly there to save on resources, is what it's designed for. And also not to double the work. Because if they had to build a brand new system to work with single player experience and how it loads and unloads assets, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. Just use the system you already have. All right, on the core engine, entity lifetime code was adjusted for the new needs of server meshing, with the goal of it being easier to use as well as creating more refined feeling persistence. A time-slice entity density manager was implemented as a part of the reworked entity lifeline for server meshing.
The background job manager was changed to better cope with the very long-running preempted background jobs to reduce runtime stalls. For example, stalls during shader compilation. Furthermore, component lifetime now uses a cheaper custom weak pointer approach that the current STD shared _PTR cannot provide. Moreover, star hash bind culling of subzones was significantly optimized. The ability to set hardware, data, breakpoints from code was fixed. And lastly, Linux thread priority changed to use real-time FIFO scheduling. Features, gameplay. Gameplay features focused on support and new bug fixing throughout July, specifically looking into performance and polishing recently worked on features. New functionality was also added to player choice. This feature now utilizes the same setup used for conversations and allows design and change whether the text is camera facing along with its size and offset. That's weird. Specifically looking into performance and polishing recently worked on features. Okay. New functionality was also added to player choice. This feature will utilize the same setup for use for conversations and allows design to change whether the text is camera facing along with its size. Okay. So it's working on the decisions that players are making in the game. Yeah, that makes sense. Features vehicle. Vehicle features started designing the new multifunction displays alongside the core engineering technology work in the background. The design side is mostly complete, with the focus now on prototypes. The team also spent time integrating new resource network that will deliver more interesting and varied engineering gameplay. This will also increase performance as items are used more efficiently. That's a lot more information on engineering gameplay than we got in the Squadron 4 in the Star Citizen monthly report. This, I think, almost but confirms that engineering gameplay is going to be a thing in Squadron 42. And the MFDs are being worked on. Like I've said before, a lot of stuff that's being worked on in Squadron 42 is going to come over to Star Citizen, but it's being worked on in Squadron first, so it's done first in Squadron. Quantum Boost, hello Quantum Boost, was fully integrated into Squadron 42 and handed over to the designers to enable them through feedback on further level design requirements. Finally, on the tech side, the team continued to support persistent streaming with a transit refactor alongside bug fixing. So, Quantum Boost is this thing that they've been teasing for like almost a year now. It's been mentioned multiple times in multiple different monthly reports, but they've never expounded upon what the heck is Quantum Boost. There's a couple of theories out there, but CIG hasn't said anything. And the reason why is likely because they don't fully know yet. They don't even know if Quantum Boost is going to work. And to give an example of something similar, they were going to be using not subsumption. PES was using a different process. Persistent entity streaming was something different before it became PES. And that system, they thought they were going to use it, and then they completely realized it wasn't going to work, so they abandoned it and started to work on PES, which then didn't work. iCache, that's what it was. So it was iCache, because the iCache is a system, a way of, I guess, storing information. I don't know 100% on iCache, but I know it's very different from persistent entity streaming. They thought they were going to use iCache, they decided that's not going to work, and they moved over to PES. So Quantum Boost, I'm guessing the reason why they haven't told us yet is because they don't fully understand how it's going to look like in its final form. So they're very hesitant to let players know anything about stuff like that until it's in more complete fashion. But it still says, what the heck is Quantum Boost? I don't know. I've heard theories that it helps speed up travel time. I've heard it helps with the combat, so you have to actually boost in order to get into Quantum, so that it makes people more vulnerable while traveling, rather than being able to hit shift and fly away and then Quantum somewhere else. I don't know. Missiles received a complete flight retune after some bug fixing, highlighting problems with the way missiles were set up. Now focuses on the intercept portion of flight and controlling accelerations rather than allowing them to be controlled as dynamically as they were before. Controlling missiles? Okay, that's what I was reading. The team also began balancing what speeds and tunings are required for the new Master Modes feature, ensuring they get the combat speeds right under normal thrust and boost, so combat starts to move in the intended direction. There's that reference. They've talked about that in the past as well in some forum posts and Spectrum posts about how they want to slow down combat speeds in Star Citizen, so obviously they're testing it with Squadron first. To help with feature ship balance and the introduction of Resource Network, the team created a master tuning document that will not only act as a reference point for future ship designs, but allow them to set out the requirements of the Resource Network balance once it's handed to design. So, engineering gameplay, quantum boost, missiles refactor, master modes feature, speeds and tunings. There's lots of interesting things here. Gameplay story. Gameplay story received a fresh delivery of motion capture in early in July, which allowed them to make great strides in several different areas, including creating a whole new scene in Chapter 1 and updating the start of another. They also made a significant update in the scenes in Chapter 4G, overhaul the scene in Chapter 4, and further polish scenes in Chapter 4. Maintenance was also performed across various scenes in several different chapters. The team also looked at the later chapters and began prototyping 2 new scenes in Chapter 10 and made some minor updates to Chapter 12. Okay, pretty good. A lot of updates to the story. Graphics and VFX programming. July saw the implementation of a dynamic bitset data structure, which replaces the T-joint bitset, as well as the investigation and testing of offline damage maps with persistence. The team also worked on separating CPU and GPU implementation, ensuring they result in the same damage map. Okay, that's for new damage maps for things like salvage and such. The team finished porting gas clouds to Gen 12 and fixed several issues, including a GPU crash related to this feature. Work began on Vulkan scaleform functionality and particle mesh rendering in Gen 12. Progress was also made on porting refraction and light beams to Gen 12. Canvas decal texture streaming was sped up, and image testing now waits for it to complete. Support for silhouettes on editor entity objects was added alongside improvements to render item sorting to make it consistent at different runs. Hair color and specular improvements were finished for the hair shader. There were also updates to tessellation and displacement on the organic shader. For jump points, the team focused on branching tunnels, which include fixing situations where the connecting segments self-intersect. Planetech team made the improvements to the world and biome builder by moving mesh building to background jobs, substantially reducing shutters in editor. There were also fixes for mismatching physics meshes on servers, as well as a refactor of procedural entities, which improved the planet loading time. 4-point Bezier curves were also added to river generation alongside general improvements to river placement tool. Collision detection was added to Rastar to prevent modules from being placed where they could overlap with Geometry 2. Narrative. During July, narratives focus on completing first-pass scripting and recording scratch dialogue for a large section of one of Squadron 42's middle chapters. refined the gameplay in this section, so narrative frequently played through these updated enemy encounters, puzzles, stealth, and navigation challenges. It's very important to make sure the player always understands that their current goals are and what their next steps should be. So, to that end, the writers have been working to balance dialogue hints to ensure that players who need a bit more guidance will be able to get it without spoiling the fun or challenge of a given area. Narrative team. Additionally, as gameplay mechanics were iterated on and polished, the narrative team adjusted the script to ensure that lines referencing those mechanics matched how the gameplay worked. For example, recent improvements to the radar and scanning system allowed for them to streamline some of the terminology used by characters in game. Okay. The team also looked to expand the use of dynamic conversation system to enhance the background and enemy NPCs that players will come across. While important key conversations are specifically planned for the player to encounter, there are some areas where the player's freedom to explore has highlighted the need for additional content to bring it to life. Rather than relying on additional bespoke lines, the team is investigating using dynamic conversations to allow for a much broader range of content to fill space. Okay, it's something we talked about before, so. Tech animation. The tech animation team continued to invest time into the tool's codebase. Years of development and quick fixes are being triaged, consolidated, and revamped to fully conform to their coding standards and modularize the codebase to be more accessible to the technical animators. This will expedite the creation of tools to the pipeline that rely on core processes. Alongside this, they're currently developing and integrating several new tool chains: CGA and skin loading in Maya, RBF solver development, and SSD and Alembic animation pipeline support. Their future development roadmap is also in planning. Tech Animations helps them build tools and stuff like that. UI. Last month, the UI team continued to develop its new star map, mentioned at the very beginning, improving labeling and concepting how to display space clouds in a way that looks great and performs well. The artists then worked on game design with game designers to create concepts for several interactive UI screens found around the game. The team also worked on new doors and airlocks specifically for Squadron 42, building them to look right in various UI styles and setting them up to support a variety of gameplay scenarios. Star map. Lastly, VFX. Throughout July, VFX team continued to work closely with art and design, supporting all visual effects requirements for their Q3 milestones. They also spent a lot of time cleaning up, documenting one of their most crucial pipelines, rigid body destruction. The majority of Squadron 42's destruction sequences are created in Houdini, then exported to the engine. The visual requirements of the sequence determine the way it's exported, with two file formats available: CGA for animated geometry transforms, example building pieces breaking apart, and Alembic for animated geometry deformation, for example bending metal. So it's important that the pipeline is robust enough to handle varying complexity of the destruction sequences without slowing the artists down. And that's it. So we don't see a lot of updates from Squadron. We're seeing a lot of July had a lot of polish, a lot of going back and fixing bug fixes and such. Obviously, the big things, seeing the improving ship destruction and other things, the damage maps, new star map, and new Squadron 42 specific assets, including, said airlocks, doors, weapons. Other than that, we're seeing some narrative stuff. A lot of work on Chapter 1, Chapter 4, and Chapter 12. The big things were missiles updates, quantum boost, resource gameplay, engineering gameplay. So very, very interesting kind of additions there. yeah, that's pretty much it. Most of it is stuff that's either fixing. There's some new things, like they're adding new Navy outfits and the Screaming Galson's Army, which they're constantly working on, and new Shubin mining assets. Mostly, it's fairly similar to what we've seen before for Squadron 42 and for Star Citizen. So a little bit lighter month in terms of content, but a lot of polishing that's being done. It's the same thing with Star Citizen. So I'd like to, as always, I'd like to know your thoughts. I do these every month. I go through every single Squadron 42 and Star Citizen monthly report, read them word for word for you, and I, as always, do not know if this is good or not. So tell me down below, do you still find these useful? Do you find them helpful? Would you like me to add or change anything to this? Those things are helpful for me going forward. Make sure to let me know in the comments below. And as always, remember, Ex Historia. Oh, no, that's a different. That's the Astro Historian, which you should also be subscribed to. But as always, remember, hope to see you someday in the black. All right. Resource management and engineering gameplay finally being talked about is really fitting the copium tanks, really filling the copium tanks for me. I mean, I get why people are like, great, that's fucking great. But like the fact that they're doing concepts, the reality is that the resource management. Sorry, the reason why I was stopped there is because I had to stop the recording. So. I like it with your commentary. Break it up into a segment and post it. That's what I'm going to do. That's why I wasn't reacting to the chat. That was that whole me saying goodbye and everything like that. It was me doing the outro for the segment, for the little capsule segment. So, and that was mostly directed at the capsule audience, but y'all's feedback is good too. I feel like it was a shorter Squad 42 report with more overlap with Squadron Star Citizen than the normal one. Maybe I'm wrong, though. It felt the same. A lot of overlap. And I think that has a lot to do with last month being a lot of polish. And the month before that was also a lot of polish. So it seems like Star Citizen or CIG is getting into a mode where like maybe we'll hear a little bit more about it in for the August monthly report, August and September, but yeah, so for those of you who don't know, parts of this live stream are going to be broken up into what I call capsules, which are small sections of the longer live stream that I post for YouTube exclusively. You can still watch the whole live stream, but the purpose of the capsules is to A, add content, and B, direct people towards the live stream so they can watch it. Thank you, Duke. You're the first person to mention that I had a haircut. I just got it before I got home today. I need to shave a little bit rather than that. Did you see the image? Oh, you mean this image? I know you're not watching on YouTube, but YouTube I'm literally using this image on YouTube. I've used it multiple times in the past too. Hey, wait, I said nice buzz, cuz. Oh, I didn't see that now. Give me the link. Give me the link of what the image from 2016, because this is what I've been seeing right here. This full thing right here. Which, again, very, very similar. Yeah, the similar one. Yeah, if you see this, compare this to this, same concept. In fact, I believe they're the exact same, reference. This is just close. This one's just closer. Do we know if there's still planned to have a Squadron 40 co-op mode on Friends so you can be a wingman? Yes, but after the release. They said that the co-op mode will be a post-launch release. Because they can't find a way of making it multiplayer without causing problems, so. Multi-crew multiplayer is something really unique about Star Citizen in the sci-fi gaming industry? Yes. I said, I can't believe you're still on because my interwebs went down about an hour ago. Wanted to know, will it be Mobileglass 3.0 or 2.5 when it releases the new GUI for Star Map? 3.0. It'll be because Mobileglass 2.0 we already have right now. Any kind of update will be 3.0 because they'll be using building blocks and not Flash. That's the big thing. When the game releases, will they keep the universe date exactly 930 years ahead of IRL, like they currently do, or they put their own game calendar in? They'll keep it 930 years exactly. Not going to do their own game calendar. At most, what they'll likely do is reset the time, reset the clock, so that it actually starts earlier, so that the game is like Squadron 42, like when Squadron 42 happens, they'll reset the time so it goes back to 2946 or whatever. But they probably won't even do that because they've been making more lore since then. So. I've been a teacher before. It's actually hard as heck to read that boring stuff out loud. It's not that hard. Reading that stuff isn't hard. Reading it out loud in a way that can be understood when you're enunciating the words and being slow enough that they can follow along. That's the hard part. To what, prevent cheating? No. They do server meshing to make it less on the server load. But thank you for that subscription, by the way, Pink Pounder. That's the reason why I didn't respond to it, because I was doing that recording. So it's strange, but if Squadron 42 is as good as it looks like it will be, I'll probably be playing a lot more than Star Citizen, at least for some time. I think a lot of people will. Noodle physics. Thunk lists. And also it's not in Squadron 42. Not that I know of. The Corsair and ISC is absolutely stunning and gorgeous. Yeah. The semi circular table is the one I linked, not just the square one. Yeah, I've seen this before. Actually, I have actually used some of this already. Yeah, this is literally here. It's here, hold on. This is literally the same one from that same. Yeah, I'll pull up the concept here, so you have an idea what I'm looking at. I've used this stuff before as well for Star Map. This is the holotable of 2016. This is what it was linked directly to. Yeah, that's it. I don't see any semicircular. That's not semicircular at all. That's just Mobileglass. Yeah, I'll repeat it all on YouTube and Saturday, so you can watch it on Saturday. I was wondering about that cargo terminal note we saw earlier in ISC. I think we're going to see that, yeah. Something tells me... Yeah. Are you saying it looks... Okay, let me pull it back. You're saying it's the exact same UI. Like this whole thing right here, all of these contexts, everything that's here. I believe so. Yeah. They're just copying that UI from this. And I believe Zane is still working for CIG, so that makes sense. He just took old assets and reused them. because that's the point of building blocks. You can literally drag and drop anything you want into building blocks, and you don't have to spend time working on back end rigging and everything like that. So. I hope they move the vehicle maintenance screen from the mobiGlass to the ship interfaces. I feel like the mobiGlass needs to get a lot of changes. I've been a big proponent of the mobiGlass getting a complete customizable UI, like a like a phone. My phone should have the similar functionality to a mobiGlass because that's what the phone mobiGlass effectively is. So I should have a customizable home screen where I can put in whatever apps I'm going to use on mobiGlass, and if I need to get access to all of the apps, I can then, swipe, up or down, move like tap down or up, or click a different little location, and it'll bring up all the apps. But that customizable home screen should have things I can display and other things like that, with options like everything we have now, plus a little bit better. Zambien, yeah, he's been working for CIG since like 2014. He's been around since the beginning. Flappy Aurora, not Flappy Bird. Flappy Aurora. I just play they implement it in a way that you can still use it with just mouse and keyboard. I'm sure they will. You can do everything with mouse and keyboard. CIG wants to make it so that, I think I put it away already, but CIG wants to make it so that you can play everything with a controller. So if you can play with like a console controller, you should be able to play with mouse and keyboard. And it's honestly not too far off from what you can do currently, so. YouTube chat seems to be broken. I'm trying to get it back up. All right, y'all. I'm wrapping it. I'm coming towards the end of everything. If you all have any questions or any comments, feel free to let them know. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow for the start of a series of special streams, in the sense that going forward, every Friday, I'm going to do a bar stream, where I'm going to get a bunch of beers, put them on my 600i, fly to a location, and open up the pub on the ship itself, so you can come by and have a little bit of light RP. Come in, grab something to drink, talk with other people. My goal is to get as many RPers as possible to come on and have interesting interactions there, while kind of hang out and talk and shoot the shit about these sorts of things. And eventually to create a spot where the pub is a RP hangout where people can come in on Fridays. I want to eventually have the pub be have live bands, have live performers come out in there and do other things like that. So, yeah. Will they go towards manual component removing because they are physicalized? Yes, they're going to go to the idea that you can physically remove it. And some components are so large you will never be able to move it yourself, which is why you have tractor beams. Hey, Paul, great system lore video. I'd love to see something like a system security rank guide at some point of all the notable known systems from the most secure to the least. I'll try. That's a lot of systems. There's 100+ systems in this game, or at least planned to be. I could say I'll probably do a list like that for the most dangerous systems in the verse and the safest systems in the verse, probably, yeah. But I actually been doing, I started a series I call System Survey, where I go through every single system and tell you exactly the lore behind that system and where those different things are, so. A controller? Jesus. Do they also intend to build Mount Rushmore in England? I always say this. Every single Wing Commander that Chris Roberts made went to console. Every single Wing Commander that Chris Roberts ever made had a console release. Do some station tours, like which ones don't suck. It's hard to do this. Where the pub at Friday? Yeah, New Babbage. I'm going to be outside of the New Babbage Commons and near the garage. Please do some station tours. Yeah, that's hard to tell. How is physical component removal going to work when some components are larger than the entry points to the ship, such as the Hercules? What do you mean? The Hercules doesn't have components that are larger than the actual ship. Not that I know of. The elevator the Hercules is an elevator. I don't think there's anything in the Hercules that's bigger than the elevator. The power plant should fit on the elevator. Dude, Wing Commander comparing a go-kart to a freaking rocket ship. Squadron 42 is Wing Commander. That's all it is. It's HD remake of Wing Commander. They mentioned the Redeemer, the parts of the ship may be removed via outside hatches to access hatches. Could be. Look at this. The Hercules power plant. Look at the tools. I'm going to look at the power plant. So it has a size 3 power plant. I don't know if you see any references, but they should be able to fit. That would also require specific ability to deconstruct those the hull in those areas so you can install those power plants, which makes sense for some ships, but not others. And I don't think the size 3s are that big, if I remember correctly. They're maybe the size of a 1 SCU crate. Size like 5s, yeah, that becomes a problem. But you should be able to fit the size 3 components onto the elevator. They have a coming soon sign? Nice. The real question is, how am I going to cram my giant ego into this ship as small as the Hercules C2? Damn. Do you think Squadron 42 Episode 2 begins with your discharge from the military following you start a new life as a beer keg delivery person on board a beer farer? Yes, it's 100% what's going to happen. the cat power plant. You're talking about the engine room they have in the Caterpillar? I don't know if that's going to be changed or not, because that seems like an older asset. That giant engine that you see, I think that's probably not the part. You build the components out and slot from pieces? No, it's just some places you can remove section of the ship and put them in. But like, let me show you all this. So this is the comma size 3. The comma size 3. Quantum drive, right? It doesn't have its size, but you can see, generally speaking, this is what it is. Now, you can open up maybe some of these sections, and there'll be subcomponents inside this. Right? So you might see, like right here, you'll see... You might have, like, these little sections might pull out, or this area might change. Like, you'll be able to pull up, and then you can swap out subcomponents for them. But this is the the package itself. Actually, I know what those things are. That's the place where you put the actual quantum drive, or the jump drive on, is those 3 points right there. But there'll be sections of this you can replace. Where's the dark mode for this wiki? You know, let's feel an animated series for Star Citizen would be great. Yeah. Do you think they'll do any more with the Freelancer series? Internally? Yes. Externally? No. We'll likely see an internal rework of a lot of ships, especially those older ones. I just want to be able to have my Drake crop up an issue, go smack some random part, and hit the ship and go back to purring like a dream. Yes. All right, y'all. It's almost 4 hours since I started streaming, so I'm going to call it a day. Like I said, tomorrow I'm going to be streaming again. On Saturday, we have a special Captain's Table. We're returning with the Captain's Table. We're going to be talking with the crew of, I want to say Stanton 7, but that's not the right one. Atmo Esports. So I'm bringing on the crew of Atmo Esports, and we're going to talk a little bit about their process, how everything's working in the future of Atmos Esports, so things like buggy races or whatever, and that whole part of the community. They requested to come on and talk, so I said, yeah, sure, fine, come on, let's talk. And Sunday we'll be doing another kind of group event stuff for Star Citizen. Saturday should have a new video for the for the lore. I don't know what it is yet because I'm still kind of heads down, head buried in the sand when it comes to content for work because I got school. Kids come back on Monday and I gotta get a bunch of stuff done. So I'll try to get stuff done on Saturday. But I may stream a little bit later on Saturday, meaning like I'm up maybe like an hour before Captain's Table goes live. I'll pop on and talk, but we'll see. I may be able to get a bunch of stuff done on Friday, so we'll see if that works too. But yeah, then next week we're doing normal schedule as well for all this wonderful stuff. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that follow button. If you're on Twitch, I am right now on 15,398 followers. I'm trying to get 20K before the end of the year. Probably not going to happen, but who knows? And on Twitch, on YouTube, I am currently sitting at, with my current YouTube that you're watching this on, I'm currently sitting at 1,782. I'd like to get 2,000 before the end of the month. So if you haven't already hit the subscribe button on YouTube, please do, because that will help me tremendously. Because that will help me boost the numbers out a little bit more. And a lot of y'all probably may not remember that you're subscribed or not, because this is a brand new channel. The TheAstroPubLive is. I split the channel between this, which is content like this, and the Astro Historian, which is now content that I make for lore stuff. Also subscribe on the Astro Historian. And if you followed here, subscribed here, and subscribe to the Astro Historian, you can enter to win a 400i, which we're giving away all this month, all the month of August. So if you want to enter to win a 400i, that's all you have to be doing, and you can enter for free. Exclamation point July in chat to get that link. Nope, I'm sorry. Exclamation point August. I'm still living in the past. And then I'm going to put this into, for those of you there as well, in YouTube land. Boom. Check that out. Enter to win. Absolutely free. And I'll pull it at the end of the month. With that all being said, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me for these 4 hours. I hope to see you again tomorrow and next week as well. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black.